Chapter 38:15. After the sect was destroyed, Hongwu Shengzon left with the rest of the subsect. Most of the disciples who left the sect went into hiding. Only the disciple who had the incomplete heaven and earth Howran scripture did not give up hope. The ruins of the Hong sect in its heyday are right here on this mountain. Unfortunately, the battle back then was so intense that even the Hong martial holy clan had descended upon the area. The Hong sect and the entire northwest region had been reduced to ashes. Countless cultivators and mortals died in the process. From then on, the once prosperous northwest Zhong state became a barren land where the chaotic energy was thin. It became the most desolate place in Zhong state, a place where no one wanted to come. Back then, the disciple came to the ruins and decided to rebuild his sect. He named it the Freemasons. The slovenly Daoist priest sighed, his heart filled with melancholy and reminiscence. Since the Freemasons have been passed down, why did it end up like this? And why do cultivators often come to steal from the Freemasons? This. Zhuo Wen voiced the doubts in his heart. When he first came to the Freemasons, he saw with his own eyes that a fetus god transformation trash dared to run rampant in the Freemasons. Logically speaking, even if the Freemasons were in ruins, they should still have some powerful divine skills. How could such trash dare to run rampant in the Freemasons? Do you know the current Hongwu divine sect? It was one of the subsects that attacked the Freemasons years ago. Since then, the current Hongwu divine sect had stolen a lot of resources from the Freemasons. Later on, they became the strongest of all the subsects and were given the name Hongwu divine sect by Hongwu Shengzon. Damn it! The slovenly Daoist priest's eyes flashed with anger when he mentioned the Hongwu divine sect. Now that the Hongwu divine sect knew that the Freemasons were going to rebuild the Freemasons, they tried to stop them and even suppressed them. Initially, the Hong sect had hopes of rising again, but under the suppression of the Hongwu divine sect, their hopes were dashed. Many of the Hong sect's disciples left the Hong sect and joined the Hongwu divine sect. The Hongwu divine sect even hired cultivators to rob the Freemasons. If a talented disciple appeared in the Freemasons, they would try to poach him. If they failed, they would resort to assassinating him. One that has been handed down. Some of the divine abilities were also stolen or destroyed. In the end, the Hong sect was reduced to this pathetic state. In our generation, the Hong sect no longer has any divine arts, except for the incomplete heaven and earth Howran scripture. Of course, the universal scripture of heaven and earth is kept by us in secret. That's why Hongwu divine sect and Shengzon don't know about it. At this point, the sloppy Daoist glanced at Zhuowen and continued, Dao Wen, you have cultivated the universal scripture of heaven and earth. You must not use this ability in front of outsiders, especially the experts from Hongwu celestial sect and Hongwu Shengzon. Do you understand? Otherwise, you'll get yourself killed. Zhuowen looked at the shabby Taoist in surprise. Leader, on the first day we came here, Daokong and DKY showed us the Heaven and Earth Howran Sutra. The next day, after I joined the Hong sect, you taught me this divine sense. What I'm curious about is, why do you trust me so much? Aren't you afraid that I'll tell Hongwu celestial sect? After all, my goal is to enter Hongwu Shengzon. The shabby Daoist smiled. The universal scripture of heaven and earth has a lot of implications. Since you've cultivated the universal scripture of heaven and earth, Hongwu celestial sect will not tolerate you. If you tell on them, you'll bring harm to yourself. And before you came, I already knew that you were wanted criminals by Hongwu celestial sect. You don't have to be surprised. Hongwu celestial sect's wanted posters have spread throughout Zhong state. I only found out when I went out to beg for alms. But you don't have to worry. The Hong sect is extremely remote and only exists in name. Hongwu celestial sect hasn't been here for almost 10,000 years. Hongwu celestial sect won't guess that you're here, so you're very safe here. Zhuowen nodded. When he arrived at the northwest region, he saw how desolate this place was. He didn't think that Hongwu celestial sect would notice this place. However, if he wanted to continue staying in Hong sect, he had to put up a disguise just in case. The one who wants to destroy Hong sect is Hongwu Shengzon. Do you still have the right to participate in Hongwu Shengzon's entrance ceremony? Zhuowen thought of a crucial question and asked. The shabby daoist rubbed his nose awkwardly. To be honest, we're no longer a subsect of Hongwu Shengzon. But if we don't say that, no one would want to join Hong sect. So, we can only use this name. Zhuowen's face darkened. He stared at the shabby daoist and said, Faction leader, don't change the topic. Answer my question. I don't have the right. I lied before. The shabby daoist lowered his head dejectedly. He didn't even dare to look at Zhuowen. Zhuowen suppressed his anger and said in a low voice, Then what should we do? I came here to join Hongwu Shengzon. You. Sigh. Dao Wen, don't be angry. There's still a way. I have a way to get you a spot. The shabby daoist quickly said. What way? Zhuowen asked. I'm afraid you don't know that Hongwu Shengzon's entrance ceremony is not only limited to the subsect. There are also some factions whose ancestors are on good terms with Hongwu Shengzon's upper echelons. These factions have a few spots in their hands. Most of them don't use them for themselves. Instead, they put them up for auction or as a reward. Coincidentally, I know of a faction in Zhong State who has a spot. This spot is being put up as a reward. As long as you complete the mission, you can get the spot. The shabby daoist said. I'm now wanted by Hongwu Shengzon. I can't move around in Zhong State. How am I going to complete the mission? Zhuowen said speechlessly. The shabby daoist laughed and said, Dao Wen, did you cultivate the righteous energy for nothing? The righteous energy that you cultivated not only has the effect of dispelling evil spirits, but it can also conceal your own aura and simulate changes. Zhuowen was stunned. He had read the Qi cultivation manual and there was no mention of such a method. This is my own creation. After all, I've cultivated the Heaven and Earth Righteous Sutra for tens of thousands of years. I'm much more meticulous than you. I'll teach you this method first. Once you master it, you can go and accept the mission. Once you complete the mission, you can get the spot. As he spoke, the shabby daoist pointed his sword finger at Zhuowen's forehead and taught him the righteous energies method of changing aura to Zhuowen. In the next few days, Zhuowen had been learning the righteous energies Qi concealing technique that the shabby daoist had taught him. After mastering it, Zhuowen gradually understood the magic of the Qi concealing technique. It was completely simulated by the righteous energies aura. Even if it was an expert who had surpassed the heaven-breaking realm, if they had not cultivated the righteous energy, they would not be able to see through Zhuowen's Qi concealing technique. Chapter 38:16. Zhuowen, Senior Zhu, and I are planning to leave. On this day, Luo Lingyu and Zhu Ziyang found Zhuowen and were about to leave. Where are you going? Zhuowen asked. I'm going to the Liyuan main region. If possible, I want to join a stronger force and work hard to improve my cultivation. Once I'm successful in my cultivation, I'll return to the Hong martial divine sect. Luo Lingyu said. Zhuowen, you've joined the Hong sect. You've also obtained a spot to participate in the Hong martial Shengzon. My mission is complete and I'm planning to return to the Ascension sect. Zhu Ziyang said. Zhuowen looked at the two of them and nodded solemnly. He knew that all good things must come to an end. Luo Lingyu and Zhu Ziyang had their own missions to complete. However, he didn't expect the day to pass so quickly. Miss Luo, Senior Zhu, take care, Zhuowen said. Luo Lingyu smiled and said, Zhuowen, with your talent, you'll definitely be able to join the Hong martial Shengzon. At that time, you'll also go to the Liyuan main region. When you enter the Hong martial Shengzon, remember to inform me. I'll look for you to catch up. Don't worry, Miss Luo. I'll inform you as soon as possible. Also, if you're successful in your cultivation, don't forget to inform me when you go to the Hong martial divine sect. Zhuowen laughed heartily. Luo Lingyu chuckled and said, How could I forget about you? I'll definitely inform you. Zhuowen, if you have time in the future, visit the Ascension sect. You'll always be welcome there. Zhu Ziyang patted Zhuowen's shoulder and said, Senior Zhu, I will. I really have to thank you this time, Zhuowen said. Luo Lingyu and Zhu Ziyang chatted with Zhuowen for a while before they bade each other farewell and left. With Luo Lingyu's unique Dao root, Zhuowen knew that the Hong martial divine sect didn't have the ability to capture her. Zhu Ziyang's aura had been concealed by the slovenly Daoist's righteous energy. Thus, it wouldn't be a problem for him to leave the middle region. Dao Wen, let's go. You should have already grasped the method of using nature energy to conceal your aura. Now, I'll bring you to accept the mission. The sloppy Daoist priest walked to Zhuowen's side and looked at the departing figures of Luo Lingyu and Zhu Ziyang. Zhuowen nodded. He glanced at Daokong and DKY beside the slovenly Daoist and asked, "Are Daokong and DKY going as well?" Daokong and DKY are still young, and I don't want them to stay in the Hong sect. Of course they will come with me. The slovenly Daoist priest chuckled and continued, "It said that there's a large number of chaos crystals as rewards for this mission. Dao Wen, it's all up to you." Zhuowen was speechless as he looked at the old Daoist in front of him. Why did he feel like he had fallen into a trap? The sloppy Daoist probably didn't want him to do the mission for the slots, but for the chaos crystals. Wow. It's a divine boat. This is the first time I've been on a divine boat since I was born. When Zhuowen brought out the divine ship, Dao Kong and Dao Jing made a ruckus. They hopped onto the deck of the divine ship and looked around. They were like two curious children. Ahem. Dao Kong, DKY, can you be more mature like me? Isn't it just a divine boat? It's too normal. Don't make a fool of yourself in front of your senior brother Dao Wen. The slovenly Daoist priest coughed. However, Zhuowen looked at the slovenly Daoist priest with disdain. Although this guy said that, he didn't actually do it. He was even more curious than Daokong and DKY. He walked up and down the divine boat, touching and knocking as if he was inspecting a rare treasure. Sigh, how miserable are these three people? They haven't even been on a divine boat. Zhuowen shook his head and muttered to himself. The Great Music Bar was located in the southeast of Zhong Province. It was ranked in the top 20 among the many forces in Zhong Province. It was a powerful force and had a good reputation. The mission mentioned by the slovenly Daoist priest was issued by the Great Music Bar. Coincidentally, the founder of the Great Music Bar had a good relationship with a genius from Hongwu Shengzon. Therefore, the Great Music Bar had a slot to participate in the entrance trial of Hongwu Shengzon. However, the Great Music Bar had never used this slot for so many years. Although Hongwu Shengzon was powerful and had a deep foundation, the entrance trial was notoriously cruel. It was said that the death rate was as high as 90%. Other than the geniuses from Hongwu Shengzon's subschool, the other forces rarely allowed their geniuses to participate in this trial. After all, they needed a lot of resources to cultivate geniuses with boundless prospects. If they died like this, the loss would outweigh the gain. The Great Music Bar was worried about this, so they had never used this slot. The Great Music Bar didn't know that something had happened. They suddenly issued a mission with a large number of chaos crystals as the reward. Because of this, many cultivators from Zhong Province had come because of the Great Music Bar's reputation. They all wanted to take the mission and give it a try. When Zhuowen drove the divine boat to Zhong Province, he did encounter many experts from the Hongwu divine sect. However, they didn't notice Zhuowen's disguise. Therefore, Zhuowen arrived at the Great Music Bar without a hitch. The main area of the Great Music Bar was a huge city called Lingxiao City. In the central square of Lingxiao City, many cultivators had already gathered. These cultivators were all cultivators from all over the central continent who had heard of the Great Music Bar's fame. Their goal was basically to complete the mission of the Great Music Bar. When Zhuowen arrived at the square with the slovenly Daoist priest and the other two, he found that there were no other people from the Great Music Bar. Sect leader, how do we take the mission? Zhuowen asked. The slovenly Daoist priest said, the Great Music Bar hasn't issued the mission yet. They're just spreading the rewards of the mission. Once a certain number of cultivators have gathered, they'll release the mission. From the looks of it, I think it's about time. The people from the Great Music Bar should be coming out soon, the slovenly man said. Zhuowen was speechless. No wonder he kept asking the slovenly Daoist priest about the details of the mission. It turned out that he didn't know either. After waiting for a while, An old man appeared on the high platform in front of the square. Although the old man's face was full of wrinkles and he looked old, his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. Moreover, the aura that was faintly emitted from the old man made Zhuowen wary. He was sure that the old man's aura was stronger than Luo Lingyu's. Obviously, he was at least a middle-stage yin-yang transformation realm expert. Everyone, I am Liu Xiaodao, the deputy owner of the Great Music Bar. Thank you for coming to the Great Music Bar. Welcome. The old man said lightly. Owner Liu, let's not talk nonsense. We are gathered here because of the mission that you have distributed. We've come all the way here. You should at least tell us what the mission of the Great Music Bar is, right? Someone in the square shouted. Immediately, the others echoed. They were all attracted by the mission reward and were now looking forward to the specific mission. Chapter 38:17. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a puzzled expression. He knew nothing about this evil King Island. However, he discovered that the surrounding cultivators all had ugly expressions on their faces. Some of them were even trembling, revealing a look of fear. District Owner Liu, although your reward is generous, this mission is a little too much for me to handle. We will take our leave now. In the square, a tall and sturdy man cupped his fists towards Liu Xiaodao and left the square with large strides. Following this person's lead, a large number of people in the square left the square in a hubbub. Liu Xiaodao's gaze was calm. He had already expected such a thing to happen, so he was not surprised. I say, sect leader, what the hell is this evil King Island? Why are so many people scared away? And what the hell is a male pet? Zhuowen asked the slovenly Daoist beside him with a puzzled expression. Oh, the owner of the exquisite music house, Che Xiarue, is a heroine among women. She is also a maverick female cultivator. What she likes the most are young and handsome men. As long as she sees a man to her liking, I heard that she will use any means to snatch the male pet into her hand. Che Xiarue's reputation in the central state is very big. When others mention her, they say that she has a harem of 3,000 male pets. I don't know the exact number, but I estimate that if not 3,000, there are at least 2,000. The slovenly Daoist said quietly. Then, what the hell is this evil King Island? Why do I feel that it is not a good place? Zhuowen continued to ask. Evil King Island is a famous dangerous place in the central state. In the area of Evil King Island, it is a dark area. That is the paradise of evil spirit. When cultivators enter the area of Evil King Island, they will definitely be attacked by evil spirits. Many cultivators have mistakenly entered Evil King Island and died. Moreover, the evil spirits on Evil King Island are even stronger than the evil spirits outside. It is said that there is an evil spirit that has gained intelligence on Evil King Island, and it commands all the evil spirits on the island. If a cultivator accidentally enters it, then they can basically forget about coming out alive. It is said that even yin-yang transformation experts will not casually enter Evil King Island. Before the slovenly Daoist could answer, a voice came from beside Zhuowen. Zhuowen turned his head and saw that the speaker was a young man who looked better than a woman. His face was delicate, his skin was fair, and there was a mole under his right eye. This person was definitely the most beautiful man Zhuowen had ever seen in his life. Zhuowen subconsciously looked at this guy's throat and found that there was indeed an Adam's apple there. Only then did he confirm that this guy was a real man. Wow! There is actually such a beautiful woman in the world. This beautiful lady, this poor Daoist can see that your complexion is rosy. With one look, this poor Daoist can tell that you are a dragon or phoenix among men, a rich and noble person. Come, come, come. If Miss wants to know more, quickly stretch out your hand and let this poor Daoist read your palm. The moment the slovenly Daoist saw this man, he immediately became infatuated. He didn't even carefully identify the man's gender before he went up to strike up a conversation. The outrageously beautiful man clenched his fists and veins popped out on his forehead. He took a deep breath and said, Taoist master, I'm a man. Oh, I understand. You're a man. What? You're a man. The slovenly Daoist seemed to have woken up from a dream as he stood rooted to the ground. He carefully observed this man and then silently walked behind Zhuowen. He squatted down and actually drew circles on the ground. Zhuowen vaguely heard this Daoist mumbling something like "My illustrious reputation is ruined." Zhuowen secretly despised this slovenly Daoist. What illustrious reputation? I think his illustrious reputation is more like a pervert's. Fellow Daoist, I was really rude just now. I hope you don't take it to heart. My name is Daoist Wen. How should I address you? Zhuowen cupped his hands towards the man and said with a smile. The beautiful man coughed a few times and returned to normal. He revealed a smile and said, "It's all right. I'm really too beautiful. I'm already used to this kind of thing. My name is Huyen Lanzhu. Pardon me for asking, but is that Taoist master yours? I don't know that Daoist. Brother Huyen, you're really experienced and knowledgeable. Can you tell me more about Evil Monarch Island?" Zhuowen cleanly cut ties with the slovenly Daoist. He didn't want to admit that this guy was his sect leader. It was too embarrassing. When Evil Monarch Island was mentioned, Huyen Lanzhu's eyes revealed a dignified expression. Evil Monarch Island is a place of great danger. Brother Daoist Wen, I think you're here for the Great Music Bar's mission. However, I still advise you to withdraw from this mission. If you're not at the 5 Elements Transformation Realm, you'll definitely die if you enter Evil Monarch Island. You've seen it for yourself. Those who are left in this square are basically at the 5 Elements Transformation Realm. The weakest ones are at the peak of the Void God Transformation Realm, Huyen Lanzhu said as she pointed at the few people left in the square and advised Zhuowen. It was as Huyen Lanzhu said. There were less than 10 people left in the enormous plaza. The slovenly Daoist, Dao Kong, and DKY had already left the square. Therefore, the 3 of them weren't included. As for the remaining people, their auras were vigorous. The weakest ones were at the peak of the Void God Transformation Realm. Zhuowen's aura was indeed too weak. He was only at the peak of the Heaven Trampling Transformation Realm. He wasn't even at the Void God Transformation Realm. It was no wonder that Huyen Lanzhu advised Zhuowen to withdraw from this mission. Brother Huyen, I appreciate your good intentions. However, I must accept this mission this time, Zhuowen said firmly. Huyen Lanzhu smiled and didn't continue to persuade him. Instead, he raised his head and looked at Liu Xiaodao. He and Zhuowen had never met before. Being able to persuade him was already very helpful. Since Zhuowen had rejected his good intentions, there was no need for him to pester him. After all, they didn't have that kind of friendship. Zhuowen silently looked at Huyen Lanzhu's back and frowned. He felt that Huyen Lanzhu's aura was very strange. Although Huyen Lanzhu's aura seemed to be at the middle stage of the 5 Elements Transformation Realm, his intuition told him that Huyen Lanzhu wasn't simple. This feeling made Zhuowen feel very strange. Liu Xiaodao silently looked at the remaining 8 people and nodded. The 8 of you stayed behind. It seems like you intend to accept the mission of the Great Music Bar, right? Owner Liu, aren't you asking the obvious? Now, give me the information of that boy toy. I can bring him back by myself. A middle-aged man with a pointy mouth and ape-like cheeks spoke in an unpleasant voice. Hey, aren't you the tyrannical Saber Manner's crazy Saber Shu Lin? I didn't expect that the tyrannical Saber Manner would be interested in the mission of the Great Music Bar. Liu Xiaodao glanced at the middle-aged man and said in astonishment. Chapter 38:18. This jade slip contains the specific information of that male pet and the location where he went missing, Liu Xiaodao lightly said. Zhuowen frowned. He raised his head and looked at Liu Xiaodao. He asked loudly, Owner Liu, there are a total of 8 people in the plaza. Why did you only give out 7 jade slips? Where's mine? Liu Xiaodao glanced at Zhuowen and sneered, Little friend, it's important to know one's own limits. Your cultivation is too low. If you go to Evil King Island, don't even talk about completing the mission. You might not even be able to survive. The other 7 people looked at Zhuowen. Other than Huyen Lanzhu, the other 6 people had a look of ridicule in their eyes. Trash at the Heaven Trampling Transformation stage also wants to participate in this kind of mission? Where did you get your courage from? Hurry up and go home to drink milk, you piece of trash. Standing not far away from Zhuowen, a youth with a scar on his face crossed his arms. He spat at Zhuowen and taunted. Who did you just call trash? Zhuowen slowly turned his head and looked indifferently at the scarred youth in front of him. His eyes emitted a chilling intent. The scarred youth was startled and immediately sneered, Trash, you really don't know your own limits. I said you're trash, so why aren't you getting out of this plaza? Don't make a fool of yourself here. Zhuowen no longer spoke. He took a step forward and instantly charged towards the scarred youth. Trash, you've got some guts. You actually dared to provoke this master. Die for this master. The scarred youth sneered. His eyes revealed a cruel light. He then took out a silver stick from his spiritual ring and smashed it towards Zhuowen. Suddenly, the silver light was like snow, and countless stick shadows whizzed over, filling the space above Zhuowen. Xu Lin glanced sideways at Zhuowen and shook his head as he muttered in his heart, this trash really doesn't know his own limits. How can a pinnacle heaven ascension transformation stage be a match for a pinnacle nihility god transformation stage? Huyen Lanzhu's beautiful eyebrows wrinkled. She originally wanted to make a move, but the speed of the scarred youth was too fast. His attack had already landed in front of Zhuowen. It was already too late for her to make a move. Huyen Lanzhu shook her head inwardly. If Zhuowen didn't take the initiative to provoke this person, then things wouldn't have turned out this way. Countless staff shadows swept over. Zhuowen flicked his finger, took out the blood spear, and fiercely flicked it upwards. Blood-colored energy suddenly exploded, and the countless stick shadows were annihilated. After that, Zhuowen suddenly threw out the blood spear in his right hand. The blood spear was extremely fast and instantly landed on the waist of the scarred youth, ruthlessly whipping him. Poochie. The scarred youth screamed miserably and spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body flew out in a sorry state. Bang! The scarred youth smashed heavily into the ground, creating a huge crater. You trash, the scarred youth roared. Just as he was about to get up, the blood spear fell from the sky and pierced through his heart, nailing him to the ground. Poochie. The scarred youth spat out another mouthful of blood. His entire body began to twitch, and his aura was extremely weak. Zhuowen took a step forward and landed on the tail of the blood spear. He stood on one leg and looked down at the scarred youth. He said indifferently, Trash? Who's the trash now? The atmosphere suddenly quieted down. The rest of the people who originally looked down on Zhuowen were all dumbfounded. It was as if they had seen a ghost. This heaven-trampling transformation youth was a little strange. He actually managed to kill the scarred youth, who was at the pinnacle of the nihility god transformation realm. This was a little too strong. Huyen Lanzhu's beautiful eyes bloomed with an inexplicable brilliance. She sized up Zhuowen and said in a low voice, Interesting. I can't believe that there are times when I'm wrong. This person's aura concealment technique is very strong. Liu Xiaodao's calm eyes burst with an unexpected brilliance. He looked deeply at Zhuowen and did not say anything. Zhuowen jumped down from the blood spear and took the scarred youth's spirit ring. He searched inside and found the jade strip that Liu Xiaodao gave him. Owner Liu, this jade strip is in my hands. Do I have the qualifications to participate in this mission? Zhuowen looked at Liu Xiaodao and said. You have the qualifications, Liu Xiaodao said indifferently. He then continued, Everyone, the jade strip has been given to you. You can leave for the Evil King Island as soon as possible. You must bring the owner's pet back safely. Owner Liu, don't go yet. The Evil King Island is a dangerous place. How can a mere pet have a chance to survive? Are you making fun of us? A middle-aged woman suddenly asked. The rest of the people also realized this problem. Since he was willing to be a pet, his strength must not be much. How could such a weakling survive on the Evil King Island? The pet is still alive. The jade strip that I gave you has the life imprint of the pet. If the life imprint is still there, the pet is definitely not dead. If he dies during the mission, then the mission will be considered a failure. Therefore, you should leave as soon as possible. After Liu Xiaodao finished speaking, he left the high platform. Hehe, this mission is interesting. Crazy Blade Shu Lin laughed. He kept the jade strip and left the plaza. The rest of the people also moved quickly and prepared to leave for the Evil King Island. Huyen Lanzhu did not move. He walked in front of Zhuowen and carefully sized up Zhuowen. He smiled and said, "Brother Dao Wen, my eyes were blind. I didn't see that you were hiding your strength. I wonder where Brother Dao Wen's master came from." Zhuowen was not surprised. He knew that Huyen Lanzhu thought highly of him when he defeated the scarred youth in one move. "I'm just a nameless pawn. Not worth mentioning. On the other hand, Brother Huyen, you should be the one hiding your strength. Where did you learn from?" Zhuo Wen asked in reply. Huyen Lanzhu smiled and said, "I'm the same as Brother Dao Wen. I'm also a nameless pawn. The only difference is that I'm from the Li Yuan main region." Li Yuan main region? Zhuowen's pupils shrank as he looked deeply at Huyen Lanzhu. He hadn't expected that this fellow wasn't from the central state, but from the higher Li Yuan main region. He just didn't know which power in the Li Yuan main region this person belonged to. Zhuowen also knew that if he continued to ask, Huyen Lanzhu would not say anything. On the other hand, Huyen Lanzhu was quite enthusiastic. After exchanging communication jade talismans with Zhuowen, she waved goodbye to him. Zhuowen walked in front of the scarred youth and pulled out the blood spear. "Big brother, don't kill me. I offended you. I'll kowtow to you. I beg you to spare my life." The scarred youth endured the pain and knelt in front of Zhuowen, kowtowing and begging for mercy. "Get lost. Don't let me see you." Zhuowen waved his hand and told him to get lost. He was not a bloodthirsty person who would kill just because of a quarrel. Ayo, as expected of our Hong sect's eldest disciple. He's simply too beautiful. His strength is amazing. After the others left, the sloppy Daoist, Dao Kong, and DKY surrounded Zhuowen with shining eyes. The words they said were all mushy praises. Ever since Zhuowen joined the Hong sect, they had never seen Zhuowen's true strength. They thought that Zhuowen was just an ordinary heaven-treading transformation realm cultivator. Chapter 38-19. Sect Leader, Junior Brothers Daokong and DKY, I'm going to Evil King Island. You guys can stay at the Great Music Bar for now. After I finish my mission, I'll meet you guys at the Great Music Bar. Zhuowen patted Daokong and DKY's heads as he looked at the slovenly Taoist master. Unexpectedly, the slovenly Taoist master shook his head like a rattle drum and said, "No way. We're going to go to Evil King Island with you." Zhuowen was stunned. Then, he slapped the slovenly Taoist master's face lightly and said, "Sect leader, are you out of your mind? You're going to Evil King Island? Do you want to die?" The slovenly Taoist master was not angry. Instead, his eyes lit up and he said, "I'm Dao Wen. The Qi refinement manual that you taught us is really magical. After I cultivated it, I could really refine the evil spirits and strengthen my righteousness. On Evil King Island, there are basically evil spirits. My cultivation might be trash, but after cultivating the Heaven and Earth Righteousness Sutra for so many years, my righteousness is more powerful than yours. I'm much more useful than you in Evil King Island." Hearing that, Zhuowen was silent for a moment. What the slovenly Taoist master said was not unreasonable. Evil King Island was a special island that was full of evil spirits and had no cultivators or beasts. The slovenly Taoist master's righteousness was indeed many times more powerful than Zhuowen's. Once they entered Evil King Island, the slovenly Taoist master would have more advantages than him. "Sect leader, I'm not worried about you. The main thing is that junior brothers Daokong and DKY." Zhuowen looked at Daokong and DKY and said awkwardly, "Senior brother Dao Wen, you don't have to worry about us. Although we haven't officially cultivated the Qi refinement chapter, we're going there to broaden our horizons. Master can guarantee our safety." DKY laughed foolishly. Daokong knocked on DKY's head and said in an old-fashioned manner, "DKY, what do you mean by broadening your horizons? We went over to help senior brother Dao Wen. Why are you so cowardly? Do you know how to speak properly?" DKY's eyes were hazy with tears as he nodded repeatedly. Zhuowen looked speechlessly at the two clowns, Daokong and DKY. Then, He looked at the sloppy Daoist and said, "Sect Master, you have to look after them. This mission is definitely not simple." With that, Zhuowen summoned the divine ship and soared into the sky with the three of them. Is that Evil King Island? About a few hours later, the divine ship landed on the shore of a black sea. Daokong's small hands held onto the railing as he pointed to the front of the Black Sea and suddenly shouted. Zhuowen followed Daokong's line of sight and landed in front of the Black Sea. About tens of thousands of miles ahead, there was the vague outline of an island. The strange thing was that the island was shrouded in a hazy black fog. It was impossible to see the specific scenery on the island. Moreover, dense and strange black clouds were floating in the sky above the island. Within the black clouds, sharp and dense black lightning was constantly flashing. Zhuowen's eyes were solemn. He knew that the island that vaguely appeared in the black fog was the destination of his trip, Evil King Island. When Zhuowen's divine ship approached the black fog of the island, the divine ship suddenly shook violently. Moreover, the array restrictions on the surface of the divine ship were actually eroded by some strange power and were annihilated one after another. At the same time, an evil and ferocious cry sounded in Zhuowen's ears. It was very noisy and ear-piercing. It was an evil howl. "Don't use the overwhelming righteousness yet," Zhuowen suddenly shouted. The slovenly Daoist, Daokong, and DKY who were planning to use the overwhelming righteousness were instantly stunned. They saw Zhuowen take out a fluorite statue from the macro world. Instantly, the evil spirits that broke through the defenses of the divine ship all distanced themselves from the fluorite statue and did not dare to approach it. "Daokong, what's going on? Why are you using a fluorite statue?" the slovenly Daoist asked in confusion. "Someone is coming. It's best not to let outsiders see something like the overwhelming righteousness," Zhuowen reminded him. The slovenly Daoist was suddenly enlightened. He withdrew the overwhelming righteousness and obediently waited beside the fluorite statue. Indeed, not long after Zhuowen's voice fell, there was the sound of something breaking through the air behind them. In just a few breaths' time, the sound of something breaking through the air was very close. Then, it instantly surpassed them. It was also a divine ship. Its size was even larger and more luxurious than Zhuowen's. On the deck of the divine ship stood a middle-aged man with a large saber on his back. The moment the divine ship brushed past Zhuowen, the middle-aged man glanced at Zhuowen and the corners of his mouth widened, revealing a meaningful smile. Zhuowen is no stranger to this middle-aged man. He is the elder of the tyrannical Saber Villa, Shu Lin, whom he met at the Great Music Plaza. "This monkey-faced uncle is obviously not a good person," DKY said timidly. "Let's continue forward." Zhuowen urged the divine ship to continue forward. He followed the jade strip that Liu Xiaodao gave him and found the place where the male pet disappeared. This place is near a reef on the southeastern shore of Evil King Island. When they landed near the reef, they saw several light sources in the surroundings. One of the light sources is Shu Lin, who Zhuowen had just brushed past. Another light source is actually Huyen Lanzhu. The rest are also cultivators who accepted the mission at the plaza. Aside from Huyen Lanzhu, the rest of them glanced at Zhuowen and continued to search for something nearby with expressionless faces. Huyen Lanzhu revealed a brilliant smile at Zhuowen, causing Zhuowen to be absent-minded for a moment. As for the sloppy Daoist, he was even drooling. Zhuowen directly slapped the sloppy Daoist, causing the latter to suddenly wake up. He awkwardly wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and awkwardly said, a man, just now, I saw wrongly again." Although the sloppy Daoist's words were soft, Huyen Lanzhu is not an ordinary person. She heard it from afar. After that, Zhuowen could faintly see that Huyen Lanzhu's smile had become somewhat stiff. "Brother Zhuo, I've searched this place several times, but I can't find any clues. I'm afraid that the male pet is deeper in Evil King Island. You and I are now competitors, so I can only give you this hint. Goodbye." After Huyen Lanzhu sent this message to Zhuowen through the communication talisman, she quickly went deeper into Evil King Island. The rest of the people did not want to be outdone and followed closely behind. However, they all had a tacit understanding and did not go in the same direction. The clues of the male pet had already been cut off here, and his location was uncertain. Therefore, they tried not to go in the same direction. This way, the chances of finding the male pet would be higher. Right now, their main goal was to find the male pet, no matter who found it. And once one of them was found, it was likely that a fierce battle would be unavoidable. Chapter 38:20. Zhuowen did not break the surveillance formation. After all, if he did that, he would offend those people at the same time. There was no need to do that. Sect leader, you carry the fluorite statue and follow behind me. Zhuowen jumped off the divine ship and said to the slovenly Taoist. The number of evil spirits on the shore of Evil King Island was large enough to completely block the divine ship. It was obviously impossible for him to rely on the divine ship to enter Evil King Island. He could only get off the ship and walk. Good boy, I am the sect leader. You actually want me to carry the fluorite statue. Are you looking down on me? The slovenly Taoist said in exasperation. Sorry, it's not that I don't look down on you. It's just that you have never been in my eyes. Zhuowen shrugged and continued, there are some surveillance formations here, so it's inconvenient to expose the nature energy. Once we enter the inner part of the island, I'll put away the fluorite statues and we'll use the nature energy. Yes. Of course, if you don't want to carry it, we will have a real fight. Whoever loses will carry it. This is a fair competition. The slovenly Taoist's face turned green. He carried the fluorite statue on his back bitterly and slowly followed behind Zhuowen. What a joke. Although he was the sect leader, his strength was far inferior to Zhuowen's. Wasn't it asking him to compete fairly with Zhuowen? Wasn't he looking for trouble? The four of them chose a completely different direction from the others. Soon, they entered a dark and dense forest. The evil spirits in the dense forest were even more terrifying. Zhuowen also vaguely found that the evil spirits here were more powerful than those on the shore. The range of the fluorite statue's light source was shortened by about 1 meter. Sect leader, it's up to you. Zhuowen glanced at the slovenly Taoist and put away the fluorite statue. The slovenly Daoist priest chuckled. A powerful chi of righteousness surged out of him, turning him into a golden statue. The slovenly Taoist's righteous energy was indeed powerful. When Zhuowen once again felt the overwhelming righteousness, his heart was still shaken. However, the slovenly Daoist priest also knew that there were other people on Evil King Island. Therefore, he had already restrained his righteous energy and it only enveloped the area where the four of them were. Furthermore, Zhuowen noticed that the slovenly Daoist priest had even split out a portion of his righteous energy to condense violent electric threads. They shot out in a dense manner and refined all the evil spirits around him. Zhuowen was not surprised that the slovenly Daoist had mastered the chi refinement section so quickly. After all, this guy had been cultivating the Universal Righteousness Sutra for tens of thousands of years and had figured out many ways to use the Universal Righteousness. The sloppy Daoist priest's understanding of the heavenly and earthly Howran Sutra far surpassed Zhuowen's. Zhuowen would be surprised if this guy couldn't grasp it quickly after reading the chi refinement chapter. Dao Wen, Dao Kong, DKY, take a good look at Master's valiant and heroic bearing. Do you worship Master in your heart? The slovenly Daoist priest was beaming with joy and was very smug. Zhuowen was a little speechless. This guy was really going to start a dye factory just because he was taught a lesson. Stop showing off. Hurry up and move forward. And Dao Kong, DKY, take a good look at how the sect leader uses the universal righteousness to refine the evil spirits. This will be very beneficial for your cultivation of the chi refinement chapter, Zhuowen said to Dao Kong and DKY. Then, the group continued to move forward. Zhuowen also used the universal righteousness to refine the evil spirits around him and began to strengthen the universal righteousness in his body. At the same time, Zhuowen used the universal righteousness in his eyes to strengthen his eye power by many times. He could now see a certain distance in the darkness where evil spirits were rampant. This was extremely shocking. In the 100 outer territories, darkness was very terrifying. The naked eye and divine sense would be blocked by a special force in the darkness. Without a light source, a cultivator would not be able to move an inch in the darkness, just like a blind person. But now, the way the universal righteousness was used was a top-notch cheat. In the darkness, Zhuowen, who had the universal righteousness, could see a little. It was an innate advantage against other cultivators. Moreover, even if an ordinary cultivator carried a fluorite statue with them, their vision would only be within the range of the light emitted by the fluorite statue. In the darkness outside the light source, they would not be able to see at all. Of course, Zhuowen's vision was not very wide. It was only about 100 meters or so. We're almost at the end of the forest. There's a canyon in front. That canyon is a little strange. It's best to be careful. Suddenly, the slovenly Daoist priest behind him reminded them. Hearing that, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with confusion. In his vision of 100 meters or so, there was still a dense forest in front of him. There was no exit, let alone a canyon. However, the slovenly Daoist priest did not seem to be talking nonsense. Zhuowen suddenly realized that the slovenly Daoist priest's vision in the dark was much wider than his. That was why he had discovered the canyon in front of him earlier. As expected, Zhuowen could barely see the terrain of the canyon in front of him after walking for tens of thousands of meters. He was shocked. Didn't that mean that the slovenly Daoist priest's vision was tens of thousands of meters more than his? Sect Master, I'm counting on you now. Observe carefully, Zhuowen said with a serious gaze. With his pitiful vision, he could not see anything different in the canyon. He could only ask the slovenly Daoist priest for help. The slovenly Daoist priest's gaze became extremely serious. He said, I see a pile of bones. There are mountains of human bones, scattered beast bones, and many unrecognizable bones. This canyon is filled with bones. It's a graveyard for living beings. But I don't see any trace of a demonic spirit. Zhuowen's pupils constricted. His vision was only 100 meters. He could only see within 100 meters of the canyon. There was no trace of a demonic spirit. The canyon was very vast. He thought that the demonic spirit was in the depths of the canyon. But now, it seemed that he was wrong. This huge canyon did not have any demonic spirits. How was that possible? This was Evil King Island, a paradise for demonic spirits. It was too strange that there was a canyon without any demonic spirits in such a place. Sect Master, are there any other paths? Zhuowen asked. This canyon was too strange. He planned to go around it. The slovenly Daoist priest shook his head and said, this canyon stretches on both sides. There's no other path. Why don't we go back and find another path? Daokong suggested. Zhuowen shook his head and said, that's too slow. It'll take too much time. I'm afraid we'll be left far behind by others. Let's go this way. With Sect Master's cultivation of righteousness, I'm afraid we won't be afraid even if we encounter a stronger demonic spirit. With that, Zhuowen led the way into the canyon. Hehe, you brat, you've finally said something reasonable. I like what you said. The slovenly Daoist priest was overjoyed. He walked with his feet splayed outwards and followed behind Zhuowen. Chapter 38:21. Creak. The moment Zhuowen stepped into the canyon, he could hear the sound of bones cracking under his feet. That was the sound of bones cracking from being stepped on. It was clear, melodious, and pleasing to the ear. It faintly reverberated within the gorge, and numerous strange echoes sounded out. Wow! So many bones. Master, Shixiang, I'm so scared. After DKY stepped into the canyon, he realized that it was not mud under his feet, but bones. He was so scared that he started to cry. Daokong knocked on DKY's head and said, why are you crying? You don't have to be afraid with me around. If anything happens, I'll take care of it for you. Follow me closely. DKY wiped his snot and sobbed, thank you, Shixiang. Daokong, not bad. Normally, I see that you've always been bullying Dao Jing. Now, at the critical moment, you're actually still able to say this kind of touching word. Zhuowen teased. What do you mean by touching my heart? I'm not worried about DKY, I'm just worried about my future fun. If DKY dies, I won't have any playmates in the Hong Sec. That's so boring. Dao Kong was so angry that his face turned red. He quickly argued. Hee. I know. Dao Kong, you know DKY the best. The shabby Taoist priest laughed. Dao Kong snorted, turned his head away, and no longer spoke. Zhuowen, be careful. Try your best to protect Dao Kong and DKY. I'll lead the way. The shabby Taoist priest's eyes suddenly turned serious. He walked past Zhuowen and walked to the front. His voice was low and serious. Zhuowen's expression turned solemn. The slovenly Daoist's righteous chi was much stronger than his, and his vision was much wider than his. For him to suddenly say that, it was likely that he had discovered something in the canyon. Zhuowen did not force himself. The shabby Taoist priest had an innate advantage in a place like Evil King Island. Zhuowen activated the great righteousness in his body. A golden ball of chi emerged from his body and enveloped him, Dao Kong, and DKY. You guys, wait for me here. The slovenly Daoist suddenly shouted. Then, he took a step forward and the vast righteous energy around him poured out like a vast ocean. Swoosh. Soon, the shabby Taoist priest arrived at the deepest part of the canyon. Zhuowen firmly protected Dao Kong and DKY as he stared at the deepest part of the canyon. His vision was not as good as the shabby Taoist priest, but his intuition told him that there was something very powerful hidden in the deepest part of the canyon. Boom boom boom. Not long after the shabby Taoist priest left, an earth-shattering explosion came from the deepest part of the canyon. Then, Zhuowen felt that the surrounding canyon was shaking violently, as if the earth's crust was about to explode. What's happening? I'm so scared. DKY trembled in fear and cried even harder. Dao Kong also looked terrified. However, he held it in and did not cry. Instead, he stood in front of DKY to protect him. Not long after the violent tremors, Zhuowen noticed that a golden light was surging thousands of meters in front of the canyon. It was the light of the great righteousness. This light was simply too intense. It spread out in all directions like ripples on water. Then, the entire canyon was bathed in the golden light. The darkness had long been dispelled and the canyon was as bright as day. At the center of the blazing golden light, there was a figure that was not very tall. It was the shabby Taoist priest. Zhuowen looked serious. He was amazed by the shabby Taoist priest's cultivation of the Universal Sutra of Heaven and Earth. He didn't know how big this canyon was, but under the bright light, he could see everything clearly. The entire canyon was tens of thousands of miles wide. Such a huge canyon was now filled with the vast righteous energy. It was obvious that the shabby Taoist priest's cultivation of the great righteousness was unfathomable. Under the illumination of the great righteousness, Zhuowen finally saw the huge creature in the deepest part of the canyon. It was a demonic spirit that was more than 10 feet tall. The demonic spirit looked like an evil spirit. It had horns that were 3 feet tall and its eyes were red. It let out a sound that was more shocking than thunder. It was Zhuowen's first time seeing such a demonic spirit. Ever since he cultivated the great righteousness, he could see the demonic spirits in the dark. He knew that most of the demonic spirits were only 3 feet tall and had mediocre strength. However, there were many of them. Ever since Zhuowen entered the 100 outer regions, most of the demonic spirits he encountered in the dark were like this. Zhuowen called them ordinary demonic spirits. There were different levels of cultivators, and demonic spirits naturally existed as well. Although Zhuowen had never seen a demonic spirit that was stronger than ordinary demonic spirits, he knew that there must be such an existence. However, these stronger demonic spirits were very rare and were not easy to encounter in ordinary places. Evil King Island was an example. In the middle ground, most cultivators knew that Evil King Island was a paradise for demonic spirits. There were demonic spirits that were stronger than the outside world. The strongest demonic spirit was called the Evil King. That was the origin of Evil King Island. Could this demonic spirit be the Evil King? Zhuowen looked at the gigantic demonic spirit with fear in his eyes. This demonic spirit was much stronger than ordinary demonic spirits. Even Zhuowen would find it difficult to deal with such a demonic spirit. However, the next scene made Zhuowen dumbfounded. The slovenly Daoist priest hovered in the air with the help of the great righteousness. He looked down at the demonic spirit and said, "Demon, surrender now and I can spare your life." "Damn, do you have to be so pretentious? This is a demonic spirit. What's there to spare? Is there something wrong with your brain?" Roar. The demonic spirit's scarlet eyes looked coldly at the slovenly Daoist priest. Then, it suddenly leaped and attacked the slovenly Daoist priest without any warning. The slovenly Daoist priest did not panic. He pressed his right hand down and the great righteousness formed a huge palm under his control. There was an extremely violent ball of golden lightning in the center of the huge palm. It was formed by the great righteousness. "Demon, it seems that you want to go against me. All right, I may be merciful, but don't blame me for being merciless since you're so overbearing." The slovenly Daoist priest pretended to be pretentious again. Then, he pressed his right hand down calmly. The huge palm fell like a mountain. Roar. Roar. The gigantic demonic spirit was suppressed by the huge golden palm in the blink of an eye. It let out a shrill cry. The moment the golden lightning in the palm came into contact with the demonic spirit, it split into countless electric threads and wrapped around the demonic spirit, making strange crackling sounds. Bang! When the gigantic demonic apparition fell to the ground, Zhuowen noticed that the lower half of the demonic apparition's body had been completely destroyed. Only the upper half of its body was left, and it was also riddled with holes. So strong. Zhuowen's eyes were full of seriousness. Chapter 38-22. Dao Wen, Dao Kong, DKY, the three of you come over quickly. The shabby Taoist master hurriedly called out to Zhuowen and the other two. Zhuowen led Dao Kong and DKY to the front of the shabby Taoist master. The latter struck a pose that he thought was very cool and said pretentiously, "Wasn't I extraordinary and invincible just now?" Zhuowen was speechless as he looked at the shabby Taoist master. This guy was getting more and more insatiable. Why didn't he realize that this old man was so pretentious in the past? Dao Kong and Dao Jing, on the other hand, quickly clapped their hands and praised their master with all sorts of corny things, such as his remarkable abilities and boundless dharmic powers. Dao Kong and DKY's words were very pleasing to the shabby Taoist master. He couldn't help but raise his head. He noticed that Zhuowen had a pained expression on his face and couldn't help but ask, "Dao Wen, what's with that expression? Didn't you see that I was invincible just now? Come on, say something nice to me and encourage me." Zhuowen was speechless. Was this old man done yet? All he did was defeat an evil spirit. Why was he acting like he was the best in the world? He really couldn't stand this old man. It's all right. Zhuowen thought for a while and squeezed out such a sentence. The shabby Taoist master refused to give up and insisted on pestering Zhuowen to say more nice things. Zhuowen had no choice but to say a few false praises to coax the old Taoist master. "Dao Wen, I remember that you only formed 1/3 of the Dao pattern last time. This evil spirit is powerful enough. If you refine this evil spirit, you will be able to form the first Dao pattern." The shabby Taoist master looked at Zhuowen seriously and pointed at the evil spirit that was on the verge of death. Zhuowen suddenly realized that the reason why the shabby Taoist master didn't kill the evil spirit immediately was to leave it for him. "Thank you, sect leader," Zhuowen said sincerely. "What are you thanking me for? We are all on the same side. Quickly refine it," the shabby Taoist master said. Zhuowen nodded and sat cross-legged beside the evil spirit. He activated the overwhelming righteousness in his body and turned it into sharp golden lightning that blasted towards the evil spirit. This evil spirit was very powerful. At its peak, Zhuowen was definitely not its match. But now, it was on the verge of death and was easily refined by Zhuowen's golden lightning. Zhuowen felt that the great righteousness in his body was rapidly growing stronger. In an instant, it had broken through its limits. Zhuowen grunted as he began to compress the strengthened righteous energy. Inside his body, a broken golden word flew out. It was the embryonic form of the Dao pattern. After the nature energy was compressed into a golden, it flew to the missing part of the Dao pattern and continued to draw the strokes behind the Dao pattern. After about 10 breaths, the Tao pattern was completely drawn and returned to Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen could clearly feel that after the Tao pattern entered his body, although the quantity of the righteousness in his body did not change, the quality of it had undergone a tremendous change. To put it bluntly, Zhuowen's overwhelming righteous energy attack was more than 100 times stronger than the previous one. This was the result of a qualitative change. Not bad. Your talent is indeed terrifying. Just by absorbing the soldier-level evil spirit, you have formed the first Tao pattern. The shabby Taoist master looked at Zhuowen approvingly. Soldier-level evil spirit? Zhuowen asked curiously. It seems that you are not very clear about the level of evil spirit. The shabby Taoist master looked at Zhuowen strangely. Zhuowen laughed embarrassedly. He had no choice but to explain that he had just ascended from the lower realms and knew nothing about the evil spirits. The shabby Taoist master did not doubt him and patiently explained to Zhuowen about evil spirits. Just as there were differences in strength between cultivators, there were also differences in the strength of the illusory evil spirits. Currently, there were 9 known evil spirits in the 100 domains. They were Lin, Soldier, Dou, Zhe, Jie, Zhen, Lai, Qian, and Xing. They were ranked from weak to strong. The soldier-level evil spirits were the second of the 9 levels. The Lin-level evil spirits were the weakest and also the most numerous. They could be seen everywhere in the night of the 100 domains. On the other hand, demonic spirits of near level and above were much fewer in number. They would only appear in certain places, and Evil King Island was one such place. Of course, the territory of the 100 outer realms was very large. Places like Evil King Island could be said to be as numerous as goose feathers. Usually, if an evil spirit at the soldier level or above appeared, it would be considered a more dangerous place. So, the soldier-level evil spirit in the canyon is the Evil King of Evil King Island? Zhuowen asked. The shabby Taoist master shook his head and said with a serious look, "The Evil King is very powerful. He is much more powerful than you think. This soldier-level evil spirit should be the Evil King's subordinate and should be under his command. Otherwise, after you refined this evil spirit, the black fog around Evil King Island should have dissipated. Because these black clouds were condensed by the Evil King's power. As long as the black fog doesn't dissipate, it means that the Evil King is still alive and well." Zhuowen's expression did not look good. It seemed that the Evil King was at least a warrior-level evil spirit. I have a feeling that the Evil King is not just a warrior-level evil spirit. He might be even stronger. Fortunately, our purpose in coming to Evil King Island is not to defeat the Evil King, but to bring out the male pet of the great music bar. The shabby Taoist master's face was very serious. He continued seriously, "Let's continue forward. However, we must be careful. The deeper we go, the more dangerous it will be." The group of 4 traversed the huge canyon. After the soldier-level evil spirit was destroyed, the number of evil spirits in the canyon increased rapidly. Most of them were near-level evil spirits. At first, because the soldier-level evil spirits were guarding this place, it was their exclusive territory. Therefore, these lower-level evil spirits did not dare to approach and retreated outside the canyon. Now that the soldier-level evil spirit was dead, these near-level evil spirits naturally had no scruples and rushed into the canyon like crazy. For a moment, the quiet canyon was filled with howls and screams. Zhuowen and the others did not care. With the protection of the overwhelming morality, these near-level evil spirits were like air. They could not pose any threat to them. Even to Zhuowen and the others, these demonic charms were the best nourishment. Outside the canyon was a barren wasteland. On this wasteland, there were occasionally a few withered black trees that stood crookedly in the wind. Sect leader, have you seen any traces of the male pet in this wasteland? Zhuowen asked. The shabby Taoist master looked around. He was looking very seriously. After looking for a long time, he shook his head and said helplessly, "This wasteland is barren. Let alone a person, there's not even a ghost. Evil King Island is too big. Moreover, on this island, the darkness is corrosive, and divine thought cannot be used. Even if sect leader's vision is very strong, if you want to find someone on this island, unless you search the entire island, there's no hope. DKY said timidly. Zhuowen sighed in his heart. How could he not know that? He took out the jade slip and checked it. He found that the life imprint of the male pet was still in the jade slip. Obviously, the male pet was still alive. However, he could not figure out how a male pet with a low cultivation base could survive in such a harsh environment like Evil King Island. If he could survive, why didn't he leave Evil King Island? Chapter 38-23. Or could it be that the boy toy is trapped somewhere and can't get out? Zhuowen's eyes flickered. After considering this, he felt that this was the most likely possibility. I found 2 people. To be more precise, 2 corpses. The slovenly Taoist priest suddenly spoke. Where? Zhuowen looked around blankly. His field of vision was too small and he couldn't see the corpses on the wasteland. Follow me. The slovenly Taoist priest's eyes were solemn as he led the 3 of them to the east of the wasteland. After walking for about an hour, Zhuowen also saw the 2 corpses mentioned by the slovenly Taoist priest. It's Xu Lin from the domineering Saber Villa. Zhuowen immediately realized that one of the corpses was Xu Lin, who had spoken at the square of the Great Music Workshop. The other corpse was a middle-aged old woman, who was also one of the 8 people who had accepted the mission from the Great Music Workshop. Judging from their injuries, they attacked each other and perished together. The slovenly Taoist priest checked their injuries and frowned as he spoke. That's strange. We haven't found the boy toy yet and they have no grudges against each other. There's no need for them to fight. Moreover, they entered Evil King Island in a different direction from us. Why would they appear in front of us? Zhuowen vaguely felt that something was wrong and asked in a low voice. The slovenly Taoist priest was stunned and said, What you said makes sense. Evil King Island is so big. It's impossible to meet these 2 people so quickly. At that moment, a huge dark cloud appeared in the sky above the wasteland and covered the sky. Then, a huge vortex appeared in the middle of the dark cloud. The center of the vortex was dark at first, then a light spot appeared. The light spot kept expanding and finally stopped when it was a few feet wide. Look, there seems to be someone in the circle of light. Daokong suddenly shouted. Zhuowen looked up and saw that there were indeed figures in the circle of light. Then, they fell out of the circle of light. Moreover, it wasn't just one figure, but a total of 5. Zhuowen reacted quickly and immediately took out the fluorite statue. Then, he motioned for the slovenly Daoist and the others to retract their nature of righteousness. The first person landed not far from Zhuowen and the others. When he turned around, Zhuowen and the others were all stunned because this person was no stranger to them. Hey, Brother Dao Wen, why are the 4 of you here? This person was the outrageously beautiful Huyen Lanzhu. When she saw Zhuowen and the other 3, she was also shocked. That's what I wanted to ask you. Zhuowen smiled bitterly. At the same time, Zhuowen also noticed that the other 4 figures had landed not far from them. These 4 people were 4 of the 8 people who had accepted the mission from the Great Music Bar. In addition to the dead old woman and Xu Lin, the total number of people on this wasteland was exactly 8 people for this mission. What's going on? How did I suddenly appear here? Bastard, who sent me here? After a brief moment of surprise, the other 4 people started cursing. They also didn't understand what had happened. However, they consciously gathered around Zhuowen and Huyen Lanzhu. Although they didn't know Zhuowen and Huyen Lanzhu, in this unfamiliar place where there weren't any cultivators, Zhuowen and Huyen Lanzhu were much more amiable than the surrounding evil spirits. Soon, Huyen Lanzhu and the other 4 people noticed the corpses of Xu Lin and the old woman lying beside Zhuowen and the others. They couldn't help but take a few steps away from Zhuowen. Did you kill these 2 people? One of the hook-nosed youths gloomily looked at Zhuowen and the others and asked in an unfriendly tone. The 2 of them killed each other. If you don't believe me, you can check it for yourself, Zhuowen said as he spread out his hands. Hehe, they were already killed by you. Now that you're saying this, do you think we'll believe you? Everyone, I suggest that the 5 of us work together to get rid of these 4 people. For this mission, The fact that only 4 of them came is already against the rules. I thought they were really weak, but now it seems that they didn't have good intentions at all. The slightly plump man standing beside the hook-nosed youth sneered. The 2 of them echoed each other and immediately raised the vigilance of the other 2. They looked at Zhuowen with unfriendly gazes. Huyen Lanzhu, on the other hand, was silent for a moment before he suddenly stood up and walked to Zhuowen's side. The 4 of you, although I haven't been in contact with Brother Dao Wen for a long time, I understand some of his nature. I can guarantee that he would never do such a thing. Moreover, you also know that this mission is to find the male pet of the exquisite Sound Street's owner. Now that the male pet has yet to be found, Brother Dao Wen has no enmity with Xu Lin and the others. There's no need to kill them, Huyen Lanzhu said. When Huyen Lanzhu spoke up for Zhuowen, the other 4 people fell silent. They might not be clear about Zhuowen's strength and only thought that Zhuowen was a nobody. However, they did not dare to underestimate Huyen Lanzhu. They had vaguely heard of Huyen Lanzhu's name and knew that the latter's background was not small. Even Huyen Lanzhu stood up for Zhuowen. How would they dare to casually make things difficult for Zhuowen? Humans, you have guts. You trespassed into this king's territory and wantonly slaughtered my people. Do you really think that I, Salado, can't do anything to you? At this moment, the circle of light in the middle of the dark clouds did not disappear. Instead, it was expanding. A tyrannical voice came from the circle of light and filled the entire wasteland. The few people who were still confronting each other looked at the circle of light in the sky, their eyes filled with surprise. The moment they heard the voice, they had their own guesses. It's the evil king. Huyen Lanzhu stood beside Zhuowen, her eyes filled with seriousness. Zhuowen furrowed his brows slightly. He could feel a great pressure from this voice. He knew that Huyen Lanzhu's guess was correct. The owner of the voice was most likely the owner of Evil King Island, the Evil King. And this Evil King's name seemed to be Salado. You humans are truly ignorant and foolish. Just because of 2 corpses, you can start an internal strife. Hehe, what a lowly race, Salado said in disdain. Salado, did you kill these 2 people? Huyen Lanzhu suddenly asked. Haha, lowly humans are not worthy of me taking action. The 2 of them killed each other, and the one who gave the order was me. However, it is precisely because you humans are ignorant that you can give me great pleasure. From now on, you will give me even greater pleasure. Salado's voice became louder and louder. It was like a large bell, filling the entire wasteland and exploding in everyone's ears. Everyone was confused. They did not understand what Salado meant by pleasure. You all entered Evil King Island to look for a human man, right? Let me tell you clearly, that human man is in my hands. Chapter 38-24. Huyen Lanzhu's face turned gloomy as he said in a low voice, did the 2 of them kill each other like this? Salado did not deny it and happily admitted it. Your guess is correct. I did give the 2 of them such a condition. Unfortunately, the 2 of them were equal in strength. In the end, they perished together. Salado said with a trace of regret. We're not your slaves. Why should we listen to you? Since the male pet is in your hands, as long as we kill you, we can naturally get the male pet back, the hook-nosed youth said in an unruly manner. Salado was silent for a moment before he spoke again. Kill me? Just by an ant like you? Then I want to see how you're going to kill me. Salado's arrogant voice descended between heaven and earth. Then, within the circle of light, a pitch-black hand appeared. It descended from the sky and landed heavily. The hook-nosed youth's face changed greatly. He felt a strong threat of death from this hand. Without any hesitation, he took out his natal artifact and used all his strength, intending to resist this terrifying black hand. The hook-nosed youth's strength was not bad. He was actually at the middle stage of the 5 elements transformation stage. As for his natal artifact, it was a cyan saber with a long handle. Cyan light flowed on the blade. At first glance, it looked as if there was a green dragon swimming on the blade. Green dragon heaven perishing art. The hook-nosed youth shouted as he held the slender saber with both hands and slashed towards the sky. Suddenly, a blazing green light surged from the blade and soared into the sky. The surging green divine power turned into a green dragon that was thousands of feet long. An earth-shattering dragon roar resounded between heaven and earth, reverberating continuously. Rumble. In the end, the black hand and the green dragon collided. Then, everyone was shocked to find that the huge green dragon was like a weak little hand in front of the black hand. It was crushed with one hand. Ah! No, spare me. The hook-nosed youth saw that the situation was not good and quickly fled to the back. However, the black hand was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it fell and covered the hook-nosed youth. The hook-nosed youth did not even finish his words of begging for mercy before he was completely suppressed by the black hand. The entire wasteland shook violently without end. Zhuowen and the others had already retreated far enough when the two sides were fighting, but they were still affected by the energy shockwaves. Then, they discovered that a bottomless abyss had appeared where the black hand had landed. As for the hook-nosed youth, he had completely disappeared. Hiss hiss hiss. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The evil king's attack was too terrifying. The aquiline-nosed youth, who was at the middle stage of the 5 elements transformation stage, was killed in body and soul with a single hand. The 3 people who had been standing with the hook-nosed youth were scared out of their wits. Their strength was about the same as the hook-nosed young man's, or even slightly weaker. The hook-nosed youth had been dealt with so easily, so how could they be spared? Evil king, we'll listen to you. The 3 of them lowered their heads. They were already scared out of their wits. Their hearts had already submitted to the evil king. How could they still have the courage to resist the evil king? Master, this evil king is so strong. Are we going to die here? DKY hugged the sloppy Daoist's arm with tears in his eyes as he spoke in fear. The sloppy Daoist patted DKY's head. His expression was abnormally solemn as he said, DKY, don't worry. Master will definitely not let any of you get hurt. Even if I have to risk my life, I will make sure that all of you survive. Huyen Lanzhu opened his mouth and said, the 3 of you, the evil king's words cannot be trusted. If all of you really do as he said and kill each other, even if all of you survive, can the evil king guarantee that he will give you his pet and not kill all of you? Right now, there is only one path in front of us. That is to join forces and attack the evil king. Only by killing the evil king can we obtain salvation. The chubby man coldly said, Huyen Lanzhu, that's enough. The evil king is too strong. So what if we join forces? It's still like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. The 2 of you, join forces with me to kill Huyen Lanzhu first. With that, the chubby man shouted and took the lead to charge towards Huyen Lanzhu. The other 2 nodded and followed closely behind the chubby man. Brother Huyen, let me help you. Zhuowen walked forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with Huyen Lanzhu. Unexpectedly, Huyen Lanzhu shook his head and chuckled, Brother Dao Wen, I won't trouble you for this battle. It's just 3 5 elements transformation stage cultivators. I can defeat them in one move. With that, Huyen Lanzhu took a step forward and disappeared from Zhuowen's side. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. The moment Huyen Lanzhu disappeared, he actually did not sense any of his aura. This was somewhat inconceivable. Then, he saw Huyen Lanzhu's figure appear a few thousand meters away. His feet stepped on the void as if he was taking a stroll. With a step, his entire body was like a phantom as he brushed past the chubby man and the other 2. In the blink of an eye, Zhuowen once again felt Huyen Lanzhu's aura. Furthermore, this aura was very close. This was because Huyen Lanzhu had unknowingly returned to his side. On the other hand, the chubby man and the other 2 were a few thousand meters away in the sky. Their bodies seemed to have frozen in midair. In about 3 breaths of time, the chubby man and the other 2 spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, like kites with their strings cut, they fell from the sky and smashed onto the ground. Zhuowen could clearly feel that the 3's auras were very weak. It was just a brush of shoulders, and the 3 of them were seriously injured. What was even more inconceivable was that Zhuowen did not even see how Huyen Lanzhu made his move. Zhuowen's expression became extremely serious. He looked deeply at the smiling Huyen Lanzhu beside him and felt a deep chill in his heart. The power contained within this ridiculously beautiful man's body was far beyond Zhuowen's imagination. This person was far more powerful than Luo Lingyu. The pressure that Huyen Lanzhu was giving him wasn't any less than the pressure that Elder Sikong Chiyu of the Hong Martial Divine Sect had given him when he caught up to them. This Huyen Lanzhu, could it be that she's a god domain transformation expert? Zhuowen exclaimed in his heart. At this moment, Huyen Lanzhu seemed to have changed into a different person. The aura on her body was much stronger than before. Her entire temperament seemed to have transformed. Your strength is not bad. I never thought that your aura concealment technique would be so powerful. Even I couldn't see through your true cultivation from the start. In the light circle in the sky, the heretic king's voice carried a trace of surprise. Salado, your appearance has long been within my plans. Or rather, my true goal this time isn't the human in your hand. Huyen Lanzhu faintly said with a faint smile on her face. Oh, then what is your goal? The heretic king asked curiously. Chapter 38-25. The halo in the sky was silent for a long time before it let out an earth-shattering laugh. Human, this king has no choice but to admire your ability to tell jokes. I admit that you've made me laugh. The evil king laughed sinisterly. Made you laugh? You're overestimating yourself. Huyen Lanzhu sneered and made a grabbing motion with her right hand. Suddenly, Zhuowen, who was not far away, felt a terrifying energy ripple in the surrounding space. Then, the entire space seemed to have been locked down. Zhuowen was unable to move under the influence of this energy. He couldn't even blink his eyes. It was as if the surrounding time had stopped. What kind of power is this? Zhuowen was horrified as he looked at Huyen Lanzhu, who was not far away, with fear in his eyes. Whoosh! The dark clouds in the sky seemed to have been stirred up by a large hand as they scattered. The halo was also shattered by some kind of power. Immediately after, Zhuowen saw a huge figure rushing out from the shattered halo. It was in a sorry state. This figure was several thousand feet tall and its appearance was like an evil spirit. It was pitch black and its black skin was filled with potholes. It looked very disgusting. This evil ghost had 3 black horns that resembled goat horns on its head. Its entire body was emitting black mist, making it impossible to see its true body clearly. Zhuowen knew that this evil spirit should be the master of Evil King Island, the evil king. How did you do it? The evil king looked at Huyen Lanzhu in shock. His scarlet eyes revealed an expression of disbelief. Huyen Lanzhu smiled and said, Evil king, do you think that just because you're an evil spirit, I can't do anything to you? Aren't you looking down on us humans too much? The evil king's eyes were filled with fear. He coldly looked at Huyen Lanzhu and said, Are you from the Exorcist family? Huyen Lanzhu smiled and said, It seems that you're not stupid. I never thought that you, a mere fighting-level evil spirit, would dare to call yourself the evil king. Truly, the ignorant are fearless. The evil king was enraged as he roared, So what if you're from the Exorcist family? Do you think you're still as powerful as before? In the end, all of you will be annihilated by us evil spirits, and then all of you humans will become our food and slave. Huyen Lanzhu mockingly said, The era of your evil charms has long passed. You want to make a comeback? I think you're delusional. After Huyen Lanzhu finished speaking, she sent a voice transmission to Zhuowen, Brother Dawen, quickly take your men and leave this place. When I'm done here, I'll come and find you. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhuowen realized that he could move his body again. Let's go. Huyen Lanzhu said solemnly. Zhuowen cupped his fist towards Huyen Lanzhu. Then, he led the sloppy Daoist and the other 2 out of the wasteland and into the dense forest from before. Sovereign, what the hell is this exorcist aristocratic family? Other than the universal scripture of heaven and earth practiced by the Hong sect, there are other human cultivators who can deal with evil spirits? Zhuowen asked in surprise. The sloppy Daoist was also puzzled. He shook his head and said, I don't know either. After all, the universal scripture of heaven and earth was obtained by the founder of the sect by chance. As for the exorcist aristocratic family, if you ask me, who should I ask? Zhuowen was speechless as he looked at the sloppy Daoist. Master, senior brother, look. There's a strong light source in the wasteland. Did Huyen Lanzhu also practice the universal scripture of heaven and earth? DKY suddenly said. Zhuowen and the sloppy Daoist looked over. Indeed, there was a burst of strong light in the wasteland. However, this light was not as dazzling as the universal energy of heaven and earth. Instead, it was emerald green. The moment this emerald green light surged out, the lifeless wasteland actually glowed with vitality once more. On the dry land, tender shoots began to emerge. Furthermore, the tender shoots were rapidly growing and turning into green grass. The range of the emerald green light was not large, only about a few hundred miles. However, that few hundred miles of wasteland had turned into a lush green grassland, forming a sharp contrast with the surrounding wasteland. As for the evil spirits that the heretic king had summoned, they did not dare to approach this area. They only dared to linger outside. The sloppy Daoist's gaze turned heavy as he said, "This is not the universal energy of heaven and should be another type of energy. However, it is the same as the universal energy of heaven and is specialized in countering evil spirits." Zhuowen was also surprised. He originally thought that only the universal scripture of heaven and earth was special in the 100 outer domains. He did not expect that there would be other similar techniques. Growth of all things. You are the successor of the Aoki aristocratic family? The heretic king's pupils shrank. He had clearly seen the origin of Huyen Lanzhu's energy. His voice was filled with fear. It seems that you are not completely ignorant, Huyen Lanzhu sneered. Then, with a stomp of her right foot, her figure disappeared like a ghost. Bang! 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 In the blink of an eye, Huyen Lanzhu appeared in front of the heretic king. Blazing green energy burst out and blasted towards the heretic king. The heretic king's gaze was filled with fear. However, he was not afraid. Instead, he roared and charged forward. Evil black energy surged around the heretic king's body. Bang! 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 Zhuowen and the other three in the forest only saw the green and black lights colliding with each other. Then, terrifying energy ripples erupted. They knew that the two lights represented the battle between Huyen Lanzhu and the heretic king. The battle between the two became more and more intense. The terrifying shockwaves from the battle began to spread. The entire vast wasteland was affected by the shockwaves. So powerful. Not only is Huyen Lanzhu's cultivation terrifying, but the green energy she used to deal with evil spirits is also not weak. The sloppy Daoist exclaimed. Zhuowen nodded. Although his vision was not as wide as the sloppy Daoist's, he could see that Huyen Lanzhu had the upper hand in this battle. After a few hours, the green light completely suppressed the black light. Moreover, the heretic king's unwilling roar filled the entire evil king island. Looks like Huyen Lanzhu is going to win. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He could hear the anger in the heretic king's voice, as well as the fear and dread hidden in his voice. Not necessarily. The heretic king is not simple. He is mobilizing all the evil spirits on the evil king island and is actually devouring them. His strength is constantly rising and has already surpassed Huyen Lanzhu's. Huyen Lanzhu is doomed this time. The sloppy Daoist suddenly sighed. Indeed, just as the sloppy Daoist's voice fell, the black light that was originally at a disadvantage suddenly surged with an even more evil energy. The power of the black ball of light also suppressed the green ball of light in one fell swoop. Human, I never thought that your growth of creation would have reached such a level. It really surprised me. If it was in the past, I might not be your opponent. But now, you will die in my hands. However, since you can force me to use this move, you can die with no regret. The heretic king devoured the evil spirits while letting out a sinister swallowing sound. At the same time, his scarlet eyes coldly stared at Huyen Lanzhu. Huyen Lanzhu's expression was ugly. She originally thought that the heretic king was just an ordinary fighting evil spirit. Chapter 38-26. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk. While Huyen Lanzhu was in a daze, the heretic king made his move. Terrifying sonic booms resounded in the surrounding space. When Huyen Lanzhu regained his senses, the heretic king was already in front of him. A gigantic pitch-black fist whistled through the air, bringing with it a terrifying black wind that was chaotic and terrifying. The heretic king's complete form was much faster than before. Huyen Lanzhu only had time to put his hands in front of him to protect himself before he was sent flying by the heretic king's fist. When Huyen Lanzhu stabilized his body, a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He had actually suffered some minor injuries. The heretic king continued his attack, not giving Huyen Lanzhu any chance to catch his breath. His gigantic pitch-black fist landed on the void and transformed into countless fist shadows. At this moment, in the eyes of Zhuowen and the other three, the green light was completely suppressed by the black light. Huyen Lanzhu began to retreat. Sigh. Huyen Lanzhu is going to lose. He's still not the heretic king's match. The slovenly Daoist sighed. Zhuowen frowned. He thought for a moment and then strode towards the wasteland. What are you doing? Are you crazy? The slovenly Daoist priest hurriedly pulled Zhuowen and shouted. Although I've only met Brother Huyen a few times, he has stood up for me a few times. I owe him a favor. Now that I see Brother Huyen in a desperate situation, I naturally can't just watch and do nothing, Zhuowen said. Your overwhelming righteousness is too weak. You can't even injure the heretic king's finger. How are you going to save him? The slovenly Daoist said solemnly. Zhuowen was speechless. He had no idea how to save them. The heretic king was so powerful that it made him feel suffocated. I'll go. My overwhelming righteousness is the strongest here. I can deal with the heretic king, the slovenly Daoist suddenly said. Zhuowen was stunned as he looked deeply at the slovenly Daoist. He clearly did not expect that the slovenly Daoist would save them for him. This was something he really did not expect. Dao Wen, take good care of Daokong and DKY. I'll be back soon. The slovenly Daoist priest patted Zhuowen's shoulder and strode out of the forest towards the battle zone in the middle of the wasteland. Poochie. Huyen Lanzhu coughed up a mouthful of blood and was forced to retreat. She placed her hands in front of her to block Evil King's attacks with great difficulty. In his complete state, the Earth Evil King seemed to have turned into a completely different person. His strength became extremely terrifying, and Huyen Lanzhu was practically being suppressed. According to this trend, Huyen Lanzhu knew that she would be defeated within 100 moves. And failure meant death. I've miscalculated this time. It's only been a few years, but the Evil King's strength has actually become so terrifying. It's all the fault of the guy who provided me with the information. This time, I've been screwed over by that guy. Huyen Lanzhu's eyes were gloomy. Naturally, he still had other trump cards on him. However, the side effects of that trump card were too great. It could only be used in a life-and-death situation. He had never expected that he would actually use such a trump card here. He was really unwilling to accept this. Human, weren't you very arrogant just now? Weren't you clamoring for me to be captured alive? Where did that aura from before go? The Evil King grinned. His attacks were getting more and more terrifying. Seeing Huyen Lanzhu constantly coughing up blood, the Evil King felt very satisfied. I'm not playing with you anymore. I'll finish you off with this move. Seeing that Huyen Lanzhu was still persisting, the Evil King's eyes revealed an impatient expression as he punched out with his right fist. The wind from the fist whistled, and the surrounding space shattered. Moreover, the wind from the fist carried with it a terrifying wailing sound. Huyen Lanzhu's face changed. This fist was too terrifying. With her current cultivation, it was impossible for her to block this terrifying fist. Huyen Lanzhu let out a soft sigh. He knew that he had to use his trump card. Otherwise, he would really die under this punch. Bang! Just as Huyen Lanzhu made up her mind, an incomparably blazing golden light flew over. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of Huyen Lanzhu and landed on the Evil King's body. Immediately after, Huyen Lanzhu was dumbfounded to find that the originally terrifying Evil King was unable to resist the flashing golden light. He was sent flying and fell to the ground in a sorry state. Oh, little beauty, I'm here to save the beauty. A teasing voice suddenly woke Huyen Lanju up. Then, Huyen Lanju noticed that the person in the golden light was actually the slovenly Daoist who had teased her before. What did you just say about me? Huyen Lanju looked at the slovenly Daoist with an unfriendly gaze. The slovenly Daoist was embarrassed by Huyen Lanju's gaze. He quickly raised his hand and said, "Little brother Huyen, I was wrong. I was just joking. Don't be so serious." Huyen Lanju's face suddenly changed and said, "Be careful behind you. The evil king is coming again." The slovenly Daoist placed his hands behind his back and struck a pose that he thought was very handsome. He winked at Huyen Lanju and said, "Little brother Huyen, don't worry. I'm Hong Shenwu. I'm powerful and my magic power is boundless. A mere evil king is nothing in my eyes. Next, please enjoy my performance to your heart's content." Smack. Before the slovenly Daoist could finish his words, a huge fist whizzed over and smashed into his face. Then, the slovenly Daoist's acting was forcefully interrupted as he fell from the sky in a sorry state. Huyen Lanju looked at the slovenly Daoist with a face full of black lines. Her eyes were filled with disdain. Is this old man addicted to acting? What time is it now? Why is he still posing in front of me? He doesn't even care about his enemy. Old man, you dare to sneak attack me? Today, I'll kill you. The evil king was enraged. His scarlet eyes were filled with brutality and killing intent. He decisively gave up on pursuing Huyen Lanju and rushed towards the slovenly Daoist who was still lying in the pit below. The slovenly Daoist's face was covered in dirt. He had suffered heavy injuries. However, he wasn't afraid. Instead, he slowly stood up and the overwhelming righteousness in his body slowly surged. The slovenly Daoist walked towards the evil king step by step. With every step, the overwhelming righteousness in his body strengthened. When the slovenly Daoist and the evil king were inches apart, the overwhelming righteousness in the Daoist's body surged and exploded. A vast and mighty aura of righteousness surged out like a vast ocean and surrounded the surroundings, driving away the evil. The evil king was shocked. He looked at the slovenly Daoist in disbelief and exclaimed, "Overwhelming righteousness? You actually have such a powerful overwhelming righteousness. How can someone like you exist in such a small place?" Chapter 38-27. How is this possible? This old geezer actually knocked down the heretic king with a single punch. Huyen Lanju was dumbfounded as she looked at the heretic king, who was sent flying so easily. The heretic king, who almost forced her into a desperate situation, was actually sent flying by this unremarkable sloppy Daoist with a single punch. Furthermore, looking at this old geezer's appearance, it seemed like he did it effortlessly. Zhuowen, who was in the forest, was also deeply shocked. Although he knew that the sloppy Daoist's cultivation of overwhelming righteousness was very profound, he wasn't sure how profound it was. Previously, he had asked the sloppy Daoist about it, but the old geezer didn't reveal anything. Zhuowen only knew that this old geezer's cultivation of overwhelming righteousness was unfathomable. Especially after learning the Qi refinement chapter, this sloppy Daoist was definitely an expert among experts when it came to dealing with evil spirits. However, he didn't expect the sloppy Daoist to be so powerful that the heretic king could knock him down with a single punch. This is a monster that even a god domain transformation expert like Huyen Lanju couldn't deal with. I still underestimated him. Zhuowen looked at the sloppy Daoist's figure with a complicated gaze. On the other hand, Daokong and DKY, who were beside Zhuowen, didn't think too much as they cheered for the sloppy Daoist. It's actually overwhelming righteousness. Could these guys be from the overwhelming righteousness family? Wasn't that mysterious family already exterminated? I can actually still see the remnants of their descendants. Huyen Lanju muttered to herself as she silently looked at the overwhelming righteousness on the sloppy Daoist's body. Her eyes were filled with shock and confusion. Why? Why are there still humans in this world who cultivate overwhelming righteousness? The heretic king roared in horror. Then, he turned into a puff of black smoke and quickly escaped into the distance. The arrogant heretic king was actually frightened by a single punch from the sloppy Daoist. He didn't even have the courage to face the sloppy Daoist head-on. Instead, he escaped. The sloppy Daoist squinted his eyes. He still stood in the same spot as he clenched his right hand. Instantly, the vast and mighty righteous energy turned into a huge hand and appeared above the escaping evil king in the blink of an eye. Ah! The evil king let out a blood-curdling scream as he was smashed into the ground. Then, he was pinned to the ground, unable to move at all. The slovenly Daoist priest walked over slowly and stopped not far away from the heretic king. Evil king, you won't be able to escape from me. You've killed so many cultivators. Today is your day of retribution. A rare solemn expression appeared on the sloppy Daoist's face. He waved his right hand in the air, and the overwhelming righteousness condensed into the illusory image of a golden book that was several thousand feet long. The illusory golden book slowly opened, and countless densely packed golden characters appeared on its surface. These runes seemed to have magical powers. They flew out from the golden book and landed on the evil king's body, wrapping around his entire body. The Diawolo revealed a look of fear. These densely packed runes contained some sort of special power. When the runes attached themselves to the evil king's body actually started smoking and disappearing. The slovenly Daoist priest planned to use the overwhelming righteousness to refine the evil king. You. Isn't your exorcist family the same? How many of our cultivators have you killed? What's the difference between you and us? The evil king roared. Exorcist family? What the hell is that? I don't know. I only know that you evil cultivators are the enemy of us cultivators. You deserve to die. The slovenly Daoist priest laughed coldly. Then, the golden runes became denser and denser, landing on the evil king's body. The evil king's body kept shrinking under the refinement of the golden runes. Endless black smoke rose around him, and an unpleasant stench was emitted. You're not the successor of the overwhelming righteousness family? The evil king realized that something was wrong and hurriedly asked. The slovenly Daoist priest shrugged and said, "This is the first time I've heard of the overwhelming righteousness family. Since you're not from the overwhelming righteousness family, why do you use the overwhelming righteousness? Moreover, I have no conflict with you. Let me go, and I'll immediately hand over the human man you're looking for. How about that?" The evil king spoke very quickly. He was now truly afraid of this slovenly Daoist priest. The overwhelming righteousness was much more tyrannical than Huyen Lanju's myriad growth. Moreover, this slovenly Daoist priest's overwhelming righteousness was also much stronger. He had no chance of winning against this slovenly Daoist priest. In the end, he would only be refined. Don't worry, I won't immediately kill you. I'm just teaching you a lesson. The slovenly Daoist priest revealed a mischievous smile and no longer spoke. Instead, he urged the golden runes to speed up the refinement of the evil king. The evil king screamed miserably. Under the refinement of the golden runes, his body kept shrinking. In the end, his huge body turned into a small palm-sized evil king. Of course, the majority of the evil king's power had been refined by the golden runes. Now, he was extremely weak. Damn old man, what are you trying to do? The evil king saw that his body had become so small and the golden runes around him were fading away. He had a bad premonition and hurriedly shouted. The slovenly Daoist priest chuckled. He grabbed the evil king and threw him into the spiritual ring. The evil king was too weak and couldn't resist the slovenly Daoist priest. He could only watch as he was thrown into the spiritual ring like a toy. After all this was done, Zhuoan, Dao Kong, and DKY came over. "Master, you're so powerful. You even dealt with such a terrifying evil king. I admire you so much." DKY's eyes lit up as he looked at the slovenly Daoist priest. Dao Kong crossed his arms and said in an old and experienced manner, "Sure enough, it's my divine foresight. I knew that master would win. I really admire myself." Zhuowen glanced sideways at the two little Daoist children and silently rolled his eyes. He knew that when the unkempt Daoist walked toward Evil King, the two brats had been cursing him, especially Dao Kong. He had said that the unkempt Daoist was definitely going to die, and he wanted to quickly run away. The slovenly Daoist priest struck a pose and shook his head. With a lonely face, he said, "This is the feeling of being lonely at the top. It's really rare to be lonely and seek defeat." Zhuowen facepalmed. This old man was addicted to acting cool. He could say anything. He had never seen anyone who was more pretentious than him. "You guys aren't really from the grand noble family, right?" Huyen Lanzhu slowly walked over and looked at the slovenly Daoist priest with a strange expression. Chapter 38-28. Huyen Lanzhu was dumbfounded. Is this sloppy Daoist stupid? His not answering the question, Zhuowen coughed a few times and awkwardly said, "Brother Huyen, our sect master's mind might not be clear recently. Please don't mind him." "Oh right, what is the Hao Ran Grand family that you mentioned earlier? I've never heard of it." Zhuowen had a premonition that the Hao Ran Grand family that Huyen Lanzhu spoke of was definitely strange. Otherwise, Huyen Lanzhu wouldn't have shown such a strange expression when she asked them. "You guys actually don't know about the Hao Ran Grand family? Then why do you guys know how to use Hao Ran energy?" Huyen Lanzhu asked in surprise. "This is a cultivation technique that our sect master accidentally obtained. This cultivation technique is called the Heaven and Earth Haoran scripture. However, it's too incomplete," Zhuowen answered cautiously. From Huyen Lanzhu's expression, he could tell that this Hao Ran energy was very important. In addition, Hongwu Shengzon didn't hesitate to destroy the Hong sect for this cultivation technique. Therefore, he became vigilant. His words were also half-truths. An incomplete version of the Heaven and Earth Haoran scripture. "You guys are really lucky to obtain this cultivation technique." Huyen Lanzhu revealed a look of understanding. No wonder Zhuowen and the others didn't know about the Hao Ran Grand family even though they cultivated Hao Ran energy. "Brother Huyen, since you know about the origin of the Heaven and Earth Haoran scripture, can you tell us about it?" Zhuowen probed. Zhuowen knew that since the sloppy Daoist had made his move, Huyen Lanzhu had already recognized the Hao Ran energy. Therefore, it was useless for him to continue hiding it. Moreover, from Huyen Lanzhu's previous actions, Zhuowen felt that she wasn't a treacherous person. Therefore, he openly admitted it. The sloppy Daoist stood to the side and didn't say anything. Obviously, he had tacitly approved of Zhuowen's actions. In fact, he also wanted to know the origin of the Heaven and Earth Haoran scripture. He had cultivated this cultivation technique his entire life, but he didn't know the exact origin of this cultivation technique. The Heaven and Earth Haoran scripture is the exorcism technique of the Hao Ran Grand family. At the same time, the Hao Ran Grand family was once the strongest exorcism family in the Heshu realm. "You guys shouldn't know about the exorcism family, right?" Huyen Lanzhu suddenly realized the problem and asked Zhuo Wen and the others. Zhuo Wen and the other three nodded. They really did not know what an exorcist aristocratic family was. "Then, let's start from the exorcism family." Huyen Lanzhu sighed and patiently explained to Zhuo Wen and the others. "The 100 outer domain in the 100 outer world is boundless grand vast. The 100 outer realms was only a very small part of the chaotic cosmos, but most of the living beings were gathered there. In this world, where there is yin, there is yang. Where there is light, there is darkness. There were a large number of creatures in the outer realms. No matter how powerful these creatures were, they were not invincible. They had natural enemies. Their natural enemy was evil spirits. Evil spirits were born from the primal chaos. In the darkness of the primal chaos, there were countless evil spirits. The number and strength of evil spirits were much greater than living beings. A long time ago, the living beings of the 100 outer domain had yet to invent a source of light that was the natural enemy of evil spirits. At that time, the night in the 100 outer domain was very dangerous. Every time night fell, many living beings would die. At that time, there was a group of people who were born with a source of light in their bodies. They could restrain evil spirits and couldn't get close to them. These people who were born with a source of light in their bodies were called exorcists. In that era, exorcists were godlike existences. Many cultivators chose to attach themselves to exorcists and became their vassals. Among these vassal cultivators, there were many who were extremely powerful. They were existences that far surpassed the exorcists. Although they were powerful, their methods couldn't deal with evil spirits. Once night fell, their strength would be useless. In the end, they could only become living targets for evil spirits. Ordinary evil spirits might not be able to do anything to powerful cultivators. However, powerful evil spirits were enough to kill them. Although there weren't many exorcists, they were very good at dealing with evil spirits. As the number of vassal cultivators increased, the exorcists started to form their own forces. These were the early stages of the exorcists' aristocratic families. As they continued to develop, the cultivators started to discover that the source of light emitted by the fluorite could resist evil spirits. With the fluorite, the cultivators could survive even if they didn't attach themselves to the exorcists. As a result, some cultivators started to leave the exorcists' organization. However, the exorcists who enjoyed the respect of tens of thousands of people gradually became conceited. They rejected the cultivators' request to leave. As a result, there was an irreconcilable conflict between the exorcists and ordinary cultivators. As the fluorite became widespread, this conflict became more and more intense. In the end, it led to a war between the exorcists and ordinary cultivators. That battle was very bitter and tragic. The exorcists were blessed by the heavens. They had the power to resist evil spirits. However, there were too few of them. Many exorcists' aristocratic families were exterminated. Large amounts of their exorcism manuals were also snatched away. After the exorcists were defeated, they started to realize that they were no match for the cultivators. As a result, they proposed peace talks. The cultivators also accepted the exorcists' offer. Although they coveted the exorcism manuals on the exorcists' bodies, they found that the exorcists' cultivation manuals were too difficult. However, they discovered that the exorcism classic was too difficult for ordinary people to cultivate. Furthermore, without a certain level of talent, it was impossible for one to master it. The exorcism manuals were tailor-made for exorcists. Although there were some ordinary cultivators who had the talent to cultivate the exorcism manuals, they were far from being as powerful as the innate exorcists. In the 100 Outer Realms, where evil spirits ran rampant, the cultivators had a source of light. However, the source of light wasn't perfect. Some truly powerful evil spirits could ignore the source of light for a short period of time and enter the source of light to destroy it. As for such powerful evil spirits, they needed to rely on the exorcists' aristocratic families to expel them. After the exorcists and ordinary cultivators came to an agreement, they began to live in peace. As for the surviving exorcists' aristocratic families, they went into seclusion and rarely appeared in the outside world. As a result, very few people knew about the exorcists' aristocratic families. Zhuowen, the slovenly Daoist, and the others were even more clueless about it. After listening to Huyen Lanzhu's narration, Zhuowen was puzzled. According to Huyen Lanzhu, the universal scripture of heaven and earth was also an exorcism manual. Wasn't this manual something that only exorcists could cultivate? Why was he, Daokong, DKY, and the slovenly Daoist able to cultivate it? However, the universal scripture of heaven and earth is an exception. This is a very mystical exorcism manual. Because the threshold is very low, as long as one has a little bit of talent in exorcism, they can cultivate it. Moreover, they can cultivate it to large success. Not only that, the universal scripture of heaven and earth's might is exceptionally terrifying. In the Hushu realm, it's not an exaggeration to call it the #1 exorcism manual. Chapter 38-29. After listening to Huyen Lanzhu's explanation, Zhuowen and the other three revealed a look of relief. They did not expect that the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra was not only the #1 exorcism technique, but also extremely suitable for ordinary cultivators. It was no wonder that a large sect like Hongwu Shengzon mobilized many subsects to destroy the Hong sect in order to obtain the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. Let me give the four of you a piece of advice. It's best not to use the Heaven and Earth Howran Sutra in front of others. Not only do cultivators want to obtain this cultivation technique, even many exorcist families have been coveting it for a long time. Even if you only have an incomplete copy, it will still cause a lot of trouble. Huyen Lanzhu said. We know about this. If it weren't for saving you, this old man wouldn't have exposed this technique. The slovenly Daoist said with a dignified look. Huyen Lanzhu was startled. She had been focusing on the Heaven and Earth Howran Sutra and had forgotten that the slovenly Daoist had saved her life. Senior, this junior still doesn't know your name. Please tell me your name. Huyen Lanzhu solemnly bowed to the slovenly Daoist and said respectfully. The slovenly Daoist revealed a proud look and said, Beauty, nephew Huyen, this poor Daoist is called Hong Shenwu. You and I hit it off at first sight. You can call me Big Brother Hong. Huyen Lanzhu bowed again and said, Thank you Big Brother Hong for saving Lanzhu's life. Lanzhu owes you a life. Lanzhu will always remember this kindness in her heart. The slovenly Daoist scratched his head embarrassedly and waved his hand. Nephew Huyen, you are too polite. You are so beautiful. No, you are Dawen's friend. Naturally, I can't leave you in the lurch. You are treating me like an outsider. Zhuowen was speechless as he looked at the slovenly Daoist beside him. Does this guy know how to speak? His words are so unreliable. On the other hand, Huyen Lanzhu's gaze was calm. She did not reveal any expression because of the slovenly Daoist's slip of the tongue. Brother Huyen, your purpose for coming to Evil King Island seems to be different from ours, right? Zhuowen suddenly asked. From the conversation between Huyen Lanzhu and the Evil King, he could tell that Huyen Lanzhu's purpose in coming to Evil King Island was to capture the Evil King alive and not for the Great Music Bar's mission. Huyen Lanzhu didn't intend to hide anything. He explained, I am the descendant of one of the exorcist families, the Uroki family. When I learned that a fighting-level evil spirit appeared in the Wukong state, the upper echelons of the family sent me to investigate. If the news is true, then let me capture this evil spirit alive. Of course, if we can't capture them alive, we can just kill them. Speaking up to this point, Huyen Lanzhu bitterly smiled and continued, however, I didn't expect that the Evil King wasn't an ordinary fighter-level evil spirit. He's actually so powerful. He's already half a step into the category of man-level evil spirit. Zhuowen nodded and then said to the slovenly Daoist, Sect Master, bring the Evil King out. The slovenly Daoist priest seemed to know what Zhuowen wanted to do. He took out the palm-sized Evil King from the spirit ring and threw it to Zhuowen. At this moment, the Evil King was no longer as mighty as before. His strength couldn't even compare to the lowest-level evil spirits. Lowly human, what are you trying to do? Take your dirty hands away. The Evil King struggled in Zhuowen's hands and roared furiously. Zhuowen ignored the Evil King's roar and asked indifferently, Tell me, where is the male pet of the Great Music Bar? Me. Do you think I'll tell you? Unless you let me go, I might be merciful and tell you. The Evil King sneered. Zhuowen looked at the Evil King coldly. Then, a powerful and righteous energy surged in his right hand. It turned into a violent electric current and landed on the Evil King's body. Instantly, the Evil King screamed miserably as his body twitched from the electric current. You! How dare you! The Evil King screamed. Unfortunately, what greeted him was an even more violent electric current. You bastard human! You! That's enough. That's enough. If you continue, this king's soul will really scatter. Finally, after a round of torture, the Evil King gave in. His pitch-black body has become somewhat dim and illusory, as if he will be annihilated at any moment. Just like what the Evil King said, if he continues to shock him, his soul will really die. Next, Zhuowen found out the exact location of the male pet from the Evil King. It is in the center of the Evil King Island. In other words, the Evil King's immortal cave. Thus, the group followed the Evil King's instructions and entered the most central area of the Evil King Island. Although the Evil King Island was filled with evil spirits, Zhuowen used the Evil King as a shield, blocking the ground in front of him. Instantly, The evil spirits on the Evil King Island were afraid of the Evil King's aura and did not dare to attack Zhuowen's group. The Evil King's immortal cave is located in a large cave in the central mountain range. They found the male pet of the Great Music Bar in the cave. It has to be said that the owner of the Great Music Bar has high standards. This male pet is indeed a rarely seen handsome man. However, in terms of beauty, Zhuowen feels that this male pet is slightly inferior to Huyen Lanzhu. When the male pet found out that Zhuowen's group is here to save him, he actually burst into tears. He kept thanking them with tears and snot flowing down his face. Looking at this guy on the Evil King Island, he must have suffered a great deal of psychological torture. Huyen Lanzhu's original intention was not to be a male pet. Therefore, she generously gave the male pet to Zhuowen. Outside the Evil King Island, Zhuowen, Huyen Lanzhu, Slovenly Daoist, and the rest are standing on the deck of the divine ship. Zhuowen suddenly asked Huyen Lanzhu, "Brother Huyen, are you still going back to the Great Music Bar?" Huyen Lanzhu was startled, then shook her head and said, "No, I'm going back to the Liuan main domain. There is nothing for me to do here." Zhuowen pondered for a moment, then handed the palm-sized Evil King to Huyen Lanzhu and said, "You once told me that your purpose in coming to the Evil King Island is to capture the Evil King alive. I don't know why you want to capture the Evil King alive. But I know that the Evil King is of no use to us right now, so I'll hand him over to you." Huyen Lanzhu was startled as she looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. She never thought that Zhuowen would hand the Evil King over to her just like that. Happiness came too suddenly. "Why?" Huyen Lanzhu was so shocked that she subconsciously blurted out the question in her heart. "That's because we're already friends." Zhuowen grinned. Huyen Lanzhu took the Evil King and hesitated for a moment. Then, she took out a book with a green cover and handed it over to Zhuowen. When Zhuowen saw the words Myriad Growth Scripture on the cover, he immediately knew that this should be the exorcism scripture of the Uroki clan. "Brother Dao Wen, this Myriad Growth Scripture is the exorcism scripture of my Uroki clan. In this scripture, there is a secret technique that can conceal the aura of exorcism energy." Chapter 38:30. Since it's a secret technique, why did you give me the entire ancient book? I'm afraid this isn't good. Zhuowen said doubtfully. Huyen Lanzhu said somewhat embarrassedly, "This is a copy of the Myriad Growth Scripture. It's the one that I always carry with me. It's not the complete version. There are only 2 levels of cultivation in it. I've already cultivated this copy to the large success stage. When I go back, I'll be able to get a higher level copy. Therefore, this copy isn't of much use to me. As for the Uroki clan, you don't have to worry about it. The main body of the Myriad Growth Scripture is very difficult to cultivate. Unless you have the bloodline of the Uroki clan or you have extraordinary talent, you won't be able to cultivate it. In the Liuan main region, there are actually many forces that have copies of the Myriad Growth Scripture. However, the Uroki clan has never cared about it because they know that the Myriad Growth Scripture is too difficult to cultivate. Giving this copy to you isn't a violation of the clan's rules. Hearing this, Zhuowen accepted the Myriad Growth Scripture. Although he didn't have much contact with Huyen Lanzhu, he gradually understood his character and knew that the latter didn't like to owe others favors. The reason why he gave all the copies of the Myriad Growth Scripture to Huyen Lanzhu was so that he wouldn't feel like he owed Huyen Lanzhu anything. "Brother Dao Wen, don't worry. I'll keep your matter a secret. I won't divulge anything. If I violate this oath, I, Huyen Lanzhu, will be struck by lightning. My soul will scatter and I'll die a horrible death." Huyen Lanzhu made a heavy oath and bid farewell to Zhuowen. Then, he took out his divine ship and left. Sigh. This Huyen Lanzhu is really beautiful. Why is she a guy? What a pity. The slovenly Daoist stood beside Zhuowen and looked at Huyen Lanzhu's departing figure. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. "Let's go." Zhuowen shrugged. He didn't want to answer the slovenly Daoist's question. Instead, he steered the divine ship towards the Great Music Lane. About half a day later, the divine ship arrived at Lingxiao City, where the Great Music Bar was located. When the divine ship landed on the Lingxiao Plaza, Liu Xiaodao, the vice-owner of the Great Music Lane, was already waiting with a group of people. When Zhuowen found the male pet, Zhuowen used the jade strip that Liu Xiaodao gave him to send a message to Liu Xiaodao. Zhuowen discovered that in front of Liu Xiaodao, there was a tall and sturdy figure. This figure was nearly 10 feet tall, with bulging muscles all over his body, filled with a sense of enormous strength. If one only looked at his body, their first impression would definitely be that he was a fierce man. However, when Zhuowen's attention landed on that figure's head, he sucked in a mouthful of cold air. This person had 2 braids on his head and a square face. If it weren't for the 2 braids, Zhuowen would have thought that this person was a man. However, the 2 braids that were obviously for women pulled Zhuowen back to reality. This tall figure should be a woman. When the male pet saw the tall woman, he was so excited that tears filled his eyes. He rolled and crawled, rushing into the woman's embrace. "Owner, owner, you scared me to death. You scared me to death. I almost died on the Evil King Island." As the male pet spoke, he cried silently, with a pitiful look on his face. As for the tall woman, she hugged the male pet tightly and said apologetically, "Concubine Lin, I'm really sorry. I made you suffer for so many days. Fortunately, you came back safe and sound. Congratulations, owner, for saving the beauty." Liu Xiaodao led a group of cultivators of the Great Music Lane and knelt on one knee, congratulating one after another. Zhuowen looked at this strange scene and the corner of his eyes twitched. In his impression, with such a beautiful name like the Great Music Bar, the owner of the bar should be a graceful and beautiful woman. The owner of the Great Music Lane in front of him was a far cry from her. The owner of the Great Music Lane and the male pet were affectionate for a while. Then, she pulled the male pet's hand and walked in front of Zhuowen and the others. "I am the owner of the Great Music Lane, Che Xiarue. Brother Dao Wen, this time, you helped me find Concubine Lin and made a great contribution. Thank you." Che Xiarue's voice was coarse and rough. It was completely the voice of a fierce man. Although he felt strange, Zhuowen's willpower was still firm. He maintained his calm and said, "Owner, you are too polite. Since we accepted the mission of the Great Music Lane, we naturally have to do our best to complete it." Che Xiarue laughed and patted Zhuowen's shoulder. The terrifying strength made Zhuowen fall down. Brother Dao Wen is indeed a straightforward person. "Xiaodao, take Brother Dao Wen to receive his reward first. Then, come to the main hall to see me." As Che Xiarue spoke, she hugged the male pet's waist and floated away. "Brother Dao Wen, come with me. The reward for this mission is Hongwu Shengzon's trial spot and 100,000 chaos gems. I'll take you to receive the 100,000 chaos gems first." Liu Xiaodao walked in front of Zhuowen, appearing extremely polite and respectful. The fact that Zhuowen could survive on Evil King Island and bring back a male pet was enough to show that he was not simple. This person was enough to earn his respect. 100,000 chaos gems. The sloppy Daoist, Dao Kong, and DKY's eyes lit up. They had never seen so many chaos gems in their lives. Now that it was so easy to obtain, they were very excited. Under Liu Xiaodao's lead, they arrived at a spacious hall. Then, Liu Xiaodao entered a room deep in the hall. After a while, he took out a spirit ring and handed it to Zhuowen. "There are 100,000 chaos gems in this spirit ring. Brother Dao Wen, please count them," Liu Xiaodao said with a smile. Zhuowen scanned it with his divine telekinesis and immediately knew that there were exactly 100,000 chaos gems in the spirit ring. Zhuowen casually handed the spirit ring to the sloppy Daoist and asked, "Owner Liu, the spot for Hongwu Shengzon? Don't worry, it will naturally be given to you. However, the spot token is in the owner's hands. Now, the owner is going to get it. I'll take you to the hall first." Liu Xiaodao smiled slightly, stood up, and led Zhuowen and the others out of the hall. They walked towards another hall. This was the main hall of the Great Music Bar. The decorations inside were magnificent and incomparably gorgeous. Zhuowen did not wait long before Che Xiarue came out again. She handed a golden token to Zhuowen and said in a serious tone, "Brother Dao Wen, Hongwu Shengzon's trial is very cruel. The survival rate of every trial is less than 1 in 10. Many young geniuses who participate in the trial perish in that trial. Chapter 38-31. Che Xiaorui glanced deeply at Zhuo Wen, and then she roared with laughter. Brother Dao Wen is really a dragon amongst men. Then I'll wish Brother Dao Wen success in the following trials. Zhuo Wen smiled faintly. His words were polite, but he didn't take it to heart. He knew his own strength very well. Although he was only at the peak of the Heaven Ascension Change realm, his strength far exceeded his cultivation level. No matter how powerful Hongwu Shengzon was, the entrance trial would not be so difficult that he could not pass it. After that, Che Xiaorui held a grand banquet in the Great Music Bar to celebrate the successful return of Chen Xiaobei. Zhuowen did not plan to attend the banquet. He wanted to go back immediately. However, the scruffy Taoist priest liked to join in the fun. He insisted that Chen Xiaobei stay at the Great Music Bar for a few days. After the banquet, Zhuowen and the other three returned to the Hong sect. Faction leader, the chaotic energy in the Hong sect is too thin. I plan to go to the Demon King path and cultivate in seclusion for 3 years, Zhuowen said calmly to the scruffy Taoist priest in front of him in the main hall of the Hong sect. When he first entered the Demon King Island, he noticed that the chaotic energy was extremely rich. It was comparable to the blessed enclave in Zhongju. However, the chaotic energy in the Hong sect was so thin that Zhuowen suspected that he would not even be able to break through the Heaven Ascension Change realm if he stayed in the Hong sect for 3 years. The scruffy Taoist priest thought about it and said, "How about this? Let's go together. The Hong sect is not suitable for cultivators like us to stay for long. When I entered the Demon King Island, I also noticed that it is a good place to stay. I plan to move the Hong sect to the Demon King Island." Zhuowen was stunned. He thought about it for a while and nodded. Faction leader, that's a good idea. Although the Demon King Island had lost its Demon King, it was still a paradise for evil spirits. It was a place where many more powerful cultivators gathered. Moreover, the Demon King Island had been famous for many years. Many cultivators did not dare to enter the Demon King Island. However, they cultivated the righteous energy, so they were not afraid of the evil spirits. On the contrary, these evil spirits could be used as nourishment for them, assisting them in cultivating the nature energy. In the next few days, the shabby Taoist, Daokong, and DKY were very busy. They were searching the ruins of the Hong sect to see if there was anything useful. Originally, Zhuowen did not want to join in the fun, but he was pulled by the sloppy Daoist to let him use his divine sense to search. Among the remaining 4 members of the Hong sect, Zhuowen's cultivation level was the highest, and his divine sense was the strongest as well. Therefore, he was the best candidate to scour the ruins of the Hong sect. During Zhuowen's careful search, he really did find some damaged cultivation techniques, god artifacts, and some remnant chaos gems in the ruins. Hey! This is... When Zhuowen arrived at the back mountain of the Hong sect, his divine sense swept across a small ruin. He stopped and looked curiously at the small ruin in front of him. From the traces of the ruins, it could be seen that before the ruins were intact, it should have been a small palace. The reason why he stopped was because his divine sense had sensed a restrictive spell under the ruins. This restriction fluctuation was very faint. If Zhuowen's spiritual sense wasn't very sharp, he wouldn't have been able to detect this restriction fluctuation at all. Zhuowen landed on the ruins, and with a wave of his sleeve, the rubble under his feet was cleared, revealing a dark tunnel. This tunnel should lead to the underground of the ruins. Zhuowen pondered for a moment, and finally decided to step into the tunnel. Roar! 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 The moment Zhuowen stepped into the tunnel, a gust of wind swept over him, and a ferocious roar erupted. Zhuowen snorted and struck out with his right hand. The righteous energy turned into a ball of lightning and condensed in his palm. Suddenly, the roar turned into a scream of agony, and then disappeared. These evil spirits are really everywhere. Zhuowen shook his head. It was the evil spirit that attacked him. The tunnel was pitch black, and it was the most comfortable place for evil spirits to rest. The number of evil spirits in the tunnel was extremely shocking. Zhuoan had to circulate the righteous energy with all his might to cover his whole body. Only then could he barely block the shocking number of evil spirits in the tunnel. Zhuoan walked in the tunnel for about 4 hours, and finally came to the end of the tunnel. What appeared in front of him was a stone door with complicated patterns on the surface. On the surface of the stone door, there were bursts of restrictive spell fluctuations. In Zhuoan's divine sense, the weak restrictive spell fluctuations were emitted from the stone door. This is not an ordinary restrictive spell, Zhuoan observed for a moment and found that the restrictive spell on the surface of the stone door was far beyond his level. With his current level of array Dao, it was impossible for him to break the restrictive spell on the stone door. Hey! The restrictive spell is weakening? Zhuoan found that as he gradually approached the stone door, he keenly found that the restrictive spell fluctuations on the stone door were weakening. When he was far away from the stone door, the restrictive spell strengthened again. Zhuoan tried a few times and finally understood the principle of the restrictive spell. The key to breaking the restrictive spell was the righteous energy. Zhuoan stretched out his right hand. In his right hand, he condensed 80% of the righteous energy in his body. Then, he placed his right hand on the stone door. He found that the restrictive spell on the stone door was so weak that it almost disappeared. The complicated patterns on the surface of the stone door were bursting with light similar to the righteous energy. Creak. At the same time, the glowing stone door slowly opened to both sides. What appeared behind the stone door was a spacious stone room. The moment the stone door opened, Zhuoan felt a very familiar aura rushing towards him. The aura of Hongmeng. Zhuoan's eyes widened. He looked surprised. Then, he thought of something and stepped into the stone room. The layout of the stone room was very simple. Other than the stone table in the center, the surroundings were completely empty. Furthermore, after entering the stone chamber, Zhuoan did not encounter any other evil spirits. It was as if the evil spirits were afraid of something in the stone room. Zhuoan was not unfamiliar with this thing. It was the enormous righteous energy. The righteous energy was extremely vast. It was much stronger than when the slovenly Taoist priest fought with the evil king. In the face of this overwhelming righteous energy, Zhuoan even felt a sense of inferiority. Apart from that, he also felt the familiar primordial aura in the righteous energy. It was the righteous energy that was mixed with the primordial aura. The color of the energy was not pure gold. Instead, it was purple gold. Zhuoan's body was trembling. The righteous energy in the stone room gave him too much pressure. If he did not resist it with all his might, he would have prostrated himself on the ground. Chapter 38-32. This is the key to the primordial stone. Zhuoan was really shocked. The purple key on the stone table was almost identical to the key sealed at the bottom of the crater in the Ascension sect. Zhuoan had thought that it would be as difficult as finding a needle in a haystack to find the other keys. He did not expect to find the second key in the ruins of the Hong sect. Zhuoan was so excited that he could not help but take a step forward to grab the key. Plop. However, the moment he took a step forward, his legs gave way and he knelt on the ground. The pressure in the stone room was too terrifying. He had to use all his strength to stabilize himself. Now, he had used up all his strength to take a step forward. He knelt on the ground and could not get up no matter how hard he tried. Damn it, I have to find a way to get rid of this pressure. Zhuoan was sweating profusely. His clothes were soaked and his face was pale. He knew that the longer he stayed in the stone room, the worse it would be for him. However, the problem now was that he could not even move a finger. How was he going to get out of the stone room? Even if Zhuoan kept using the nature energy, it was useless. The purplish gold nature energy was more powerful than the nature energy. It suppressed the nature energy to the point that it could not retaliate. My name is Hong Shenwu. I am the founder of the Hong Shenwu sect. I unintentionally obtained the universal scripture of heaven and earth. I treated it like a treasure and cultivated it tirelessly. I finally achieved great success. The The fact that you can enter this stone room means that you are the successor of the universal scripture of heaven and earth. The key that contains the primordial chi is hidden in this stone room. I am not sure what the use of the key is. However, I know that the primordial chi in the key can greatly increase one's comprehension. The primordial chi is mysterious and unpredictable. I have been meditating in the stone room for countless years and finally merged the primordial chi and the nature energy into one to form a brand new nature energy. I named it the Grand Primordial Chi. Junior, those who enter the stone chamber and wish to obtain the key must comprehend the vast primordial chi. Only then will you be able to resist the vast primordial chi within the stone chamber. If you don't even have this bit of comprehension, then you can die here and become a skeleton in this stone room. Just as Zhuowen was struggling incessantly, an oppressive and awe-inspiring voice came from the stone room. In Zhuowen's ears, this voice was actually exactly the same as the sect leader of the Hong sect, the slovenly Daoist. Moreover, this so-called founder's name was actually Hong Shenwu. Wasn't that the name of the sloppy Daoist? Could the shabby Daoist be the founder of the Hong sect? Zhuowen's heart was filled with doubts, but the current predicament did not allow him to let his imagination run wild. He was in a terrible state now. If what the voice said was true, then he would die here if he couldn't comprehend the vast primordial chi before he died. After knowing the way out of this predicament, Zhuowen calmed down. He had obtained a primordial stone and a primordial key a long time ago. He was all too familiar with the primordial chi. His comprehension had also improved imperceptibly. After calming down, Zhuowen began to circulate both the vast righteousness and primordial energy within his body. The two different types of energy were like two slithering snakes, constantly moving within Zhuowen's meridians. Zhuowen controlled the two types of energy to come into contact with each other at the same point in his meridians. Once the two types of energy came into contact, there was a sudden burst of terrifying energy. Then, Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned extremely pale. Zhuowen's eyes flashed viciously as he continued to try to fuse the two types of energy. He knew very well that if he did not succeed, he would die. Every time he tried, Zhuowen's internal injuries worsened. His entire body was drenched in blood and he looked like a ferocious bloody man. However, Zhuowen became calmer and calmer. Every time he tried, he gained enough experience for himself. This is the time. Zhuowen roared and once again fused the two types of energy within his meridians. The golden vast righteousness and the purple primordial energy gathered together. The two types of energy kept tumbling and the two colors kept intersecting and separating as if they were struggling. Zhuowen took a deep breath. His eyes were terrifyingly calm. However, the moment the two types of energy finally fused together, Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood. However, his eyes became brighter and brighter. The golden and purple colors in his meridians finally fused together and turned into a strange purple-gold energy. At first, this purple-gold energy was very weak, like an insignificant spark. However, this spark was like a prairie fire. It quickly grew stronger and spread. In an instant, Zhuowen's meridians were filled with this strange purple-gold energy. At the same time, the boundless purple-gold energy that filled the stone chamber seemed to have found a leader as it started to converge toward Zhuowen's body. A steady stream of purple-gold energy surged into Zhuowen's body. It flowed through his flesh and blood, his meridians, and his bones. In the end, his internal injuries gradually healed. At this moment, the terrifying might within the stone chamber also completely disappeared. This energy is devouring my shattered divine power. After Zhuowen fused with the vast primordial energy, this new type of energy was extremely domineering. It actually started to devour the shattered divine power within his body. After a short while, the vast shattered divine power within Zhuowen's body was completely devoured by the vast primordial energy. It transformed into a brand new type of energy that was of a higher level. The purple gold energy in the stone chamber is even more effective than chaotic energy. After absorbing all of the purplish golden energy within the stone chamber, Zhuowen's body began to nurture an energy that was far more powerful than shattered divine power. Thus, His cultivation base naturally progressed to the void god transformation stage. Boom boom boom. It was as if Zhuowen's entire body had undergone a metamorphosis. A thunderous boom erupted from his body, and he was filled with power. Crap, the void god transformation stage tribulation is about to descend. Zhuowen's expression shifted slightly. In the instant that he made his breakthrough, he could sense the aura of tribulation gathering in the air above the ruins. Zhuowen knew just how terrifying his tribulation would be. If he were to transcend his tribulation in the Hong sect, he would definitely raise the Hong sect and the surrounding mountain ranges to the ground. He grabbed the purple key on the stone table and put it into his great world before taking a step forward and disappearing from the stone chamber. Dawen, where did you go? You've been gone for half a day. Zhuowen had only just appeared above the ruins of the Hong sect when he saw the sloppy Daoist leading Daokong and DKY toward him. Stop right there. Wait for me at the Hong sect for a few days. I need to transcend my void god transformation stage tribulation. After saying this, Zhuowen summoned his divine boat and left the Hong sect. Void god transformation stage? Senior martial brother made a breakthrough. Daokong faltered slightly as he turned to the sloppy Daoist with a confused expression. The sloppy Daoist didn't say anything. His gaze fell upon the small ruins at the back of the mountain. A dark passageway had appeared within the small ruins. The sloppy Daoist stared at the dark passageway in silence. He stood rooted to the spot as if he had been possessed. Then, he hugged his head with his hands as his entire body trembled. Chapter 38-33. Boom. Boom. In the dusky sky, thunder rumbled and roared. Streaks of black lightning struck down from the sky, as if they were terrifying divine swords that could pierce through the horizon. Splat. The black lightning bolts landed on Zhuowen's body, causing Zhuowen to stagger and spit out a mouthful of blood. Zhuowen continued to fly in the northwest direction and entered a mountainous region. There were almost no cultivators here, not even the aura of living beings. It was dead silent. Zhuowen took a deep breath and stopped in a valley. He raised his head and looked at the huge black hole in the sky. Strange and powerful black lightning bolts were brewing in the black hole. The black lightning bolts were definitely not ordinary tribulation energy. They carried with them a terrifying aura of destruction. Zhuowen was struck several times along the way, and was almost struck until his soul scattered and scattered. The lightning bolts not only targeted the physical body, but also affected the soul. It was an extremely terrifying black lightning. Boom. 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 The black lightning bolts fell again, each time more terrifying than the last. Zhuowen had no choice but to face it head-on. Terrifying black lightning exploded around him, spreading out countless threads of lightning, making him look like a god of lightning. However, Zhuowen did not have it easy. The lightning energy was too terrifying. His physical body and soul were greatly affected. However, Zhuowen did not cower because of this. Instead, he used the black lightning bolts to temper his physical body and soul. After Zhuowen's shattered divine power merged with the overwhelming righteous energy and grand mist aura, it formed a new energy that was extremely powerful. It helped him block most of the black lightning's energy. Zhuowen even found that the black lightning seemed to be afraid of the new energy in his body. After the fusion of the new divine power, Zhuowen named it the overwhelming grand mist divine power. The shattered divine power in his body was completely replaced by the overwhelming grand mist divine power. His strength underwent a transformation as a result. His divine soul took this opportunity to practice the ancient sword visualization painting. Not long after, a blazing and resplendent light flickered between his brows. Within the light, there was a vast and powerful sword that soared into the sky as if it could cut through the heavens. Zhuowen abruptly opened his eyes, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. At this moment, he seemed to have understood something. The visualization of the ancient sword had broken through the shackles and reached the 5th level. His soul had also undergone a transformation because of this. The power of his divine sense had still evolved to the terrifying extent of the heaven-crushing 5th transformation. Zhuowen pointed the sword finger on his right hand at his glabella. Instantly, a terrifying sword intent burst out from his glabella. The sword intent that was filled with unparalleled power manifested into a sword-shaped force that was dozens of feet long. Moreover, this sword-shaped force was constantly expanding and strengthening, from several tens of feet, to several tens of feet, to several hundreds of feet, and finally to several tens of thousands of feet. At the same time, in the depths of the black hole, countless bolts of black lightning intertwined like black snakes, constantly condensing, forming a black snake-shaped thunderbolt that was thousands of feet long. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The ear-piercing hiss of the snake's forked tongue filled heaven and earth. Then, the huge black snake that had been accumulating power swooped down, opened its bloody mouth, and released endless black lightning toward Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes were calm as he silently looked down at the huge snake that was swooping down toward him. He waved his right hand, and the sword will that had swelled to several tens of thousands of feet long soared into the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The sword will collided with the huge snake, and a terrifying explosion that shook heaven and earth erupted. Then, the entire sky lit up with a blinding light. Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood, and the energy in his body surged as he crashed to the ground. He had sustained heavy injuries. Then, he saw the black hole in the sky gradually shrink, and the lightning snake also gradually dissipated. He knew that he had successfully transcended the void god transformation stage tribulation this time. At the same time, Zhuowen felt a powerful surge of energy enter his body, and his injuries gradually healed. His aura also rapidly rose. He knew that he had transcended the tribulation and had reached the void god transformation stage. This surge of energy was the feedback from heaven and earth. Zhuowen hurriedly sat down cross-legged on the ground and absorbed this mysterious energy. His aura also continued to grow. After about half a day, Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. His aura had completely stabilized, and he had successfully broken through to the void god transformation stage. Moreover, Huang Xiaolong's faux god transformation was different from ordinary faux god transformation experts. Not only did the Grand Mist God Force flow through his body surpass the Grand Mist God Force, but the number of faux gods he could condense wasn't 1, but 9. Zhuowen slowly stood up. With a thought, numerous powerful phantoms appeared around him. There were a total of 9 phantoms clad in armor. 9 pairs of eerie eyes silently looked at Zhuowen. Then, they knelt on one knee and faced Zhuowen. Zhuowen silently looked at the 9 void gods in front of him, and his heart also jolted with shock. The most obvious characteristic of the void god transformation stage was that a mysterious energy would emerge from heaven and earth and condense into a void god that would attach itself to the cultivator's body. The cultivator only needed a thought to summon this void god to fight for them. Ordinary cultivators could only condense a single void god. This was the law. However, after Zhuowen broke through to the void god transformation stage, he was able to condense 9 void gods. This was simply too unbelievable. A serious expression appeared on Zhuowen's face. It wasn't that he hadn't battled with void god transformation stage cultivators before. He had even defeated peak void god transformation stage cultivators before. However, there had never been a void god transformation stage cultivator like him. Moreover, the energy flowing through his body was far more powerful than void god transformation stage cultivators. If Zhuowen were to face a peak void god transformation stage cultivator now, he would be able to crush them with a single finger. Moreover, these 9 void gods were far more powerful than ordinary void gods. Zhuowen didn't need to rely on the power of the astral weapon to fight a peak 5 elements transformation stage cultivator, and he could even suppress them. After breaking through, Zhuowen didn't rush back to the Hong sect. Instead, he took out the purple key he found in the secret chamber. With a thought, the supreme word stone flew out and merged with the purple key. Then, the map fragment in Zhuowen's divine soul was instantly replenished. Originally, it was only 1/3 of the map, but now, it was 2/3 complete. Zhuowen finally understood the specific outline and location of this map fragment. From this map fragment, Zhuowen could tell that the second primordial stone should be located in a huge mountain range. What exactly was this mountain range? Zhuoan wasn't too sure. He knew nothing about the geography of the 100 domains. At least, from what he knew, this mountain range shouldn't be in the middle state. Zhuoan knew that he needed to find a detailed geographical map of the 100 domains before he could know the exact location of this mountain range. Perhaps he should go to the middle state to try his luck and see if he could find a geographical map of the 100 domains. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.